Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
What's up, everybody? You are watching / listening to the Command Zone podcast. I am one of your hosts today. It's Jimmy Wong.
Hey, I'm your other host, Rachel Weeks.
Rachel, so glad to have you here. Josh Lee Kwai is out of town, so we're going to be covering some cool stuff. That is the multicolored commanders from Phyrexia. All will be one. They're really exciting. There's some exciting stuff in this set, including a brand new 4-color commander. Mm-hmm. We're back at it.
Brand new 5-color commander.
That's right. Before is more interesting to me. But before we get into that, we got to talk about our sponsors real fast. CardKingdom.com/command. We love Card Kingdom. They're a great place to get all the cards you need for your Magic collection, your deck, your trade binders, whatever it is. Card Kingdom's got you covered. They have an amazing buyback system. If you want to trade cards in and get store credit, you can also just put all the cards you want into their deck builder and boom, instantly get a list of cards you can add to your cart. You can choose what quality they're at. It's a great way to get all your shopping done in one place and to know that you're going to get a secure package from Card Kingdom. There's another great story. Was it you that got a package?
Yeah, I had a Card Kingdom pack to show up on my door soaking wet.
Uh-oh.
Soaking wet. It's been raining a lot in California. And
right.
I opened
it was not Card Kingdom's fault. This was
the
weather.
It was the weather.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. But because they come in the little plastic containers and they were taped shut, all my cards were safe.
Wow.
Everything was wonderful. It was a big moment.
That's great. And of course, if something is wrong with your order, Card Kingdom has great customer support too. So just head on over to cardkingdom.com/command. Get your Magic shopping done right now and get the cards you need, especially these spicy ones coming up, pre-ordering from 1.
Oh, the set is going to be so sweet. And you can get all of the set art from ultrapro.com/command. They have official Magic licenses, which means that you can get all of the Phyrexia art that you love and want to represent.
In front of us? Ooh.
I've got a
hollow foil Jace completed.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
go to ultrapro.com/command to pick that up. They're going to have deck boxes. They're going to have sleeves. They're going to have dice. They're going to have play mats. And you can get all of that product to match your new Phyrexia All Will Be One commanders.
Or just because this Elish Norn art is super sweet.
Yeah. Or if you're completed, you want to represent your side of the fight this time.
The complete set, deck, binder, box, all that stuff.
The complete set.
Yeah. Another cool announcement, Game Nights Live is happening once again in Philly, MagicCon Philly. It's coming up soon. Make sure you all get your tickets. This is our first trip out to the East Coast as a company. Josh and I have been wanting to come out to the East Coast for a while now, and Philadelphia seems like the perfect place to do it.
Yeah, February 17th through 19th. We will be there. We will be putting on a huge show.
Yeah, Rachel is going to be there as well.
I'm really excited. I've never been to Philly.
I know, me neither, actually. I've been to New York a bunch of times, doing the East Coast, but Philly for the first time. Also, if you have food recs, leave them in the comments, because Josh and I, we are ready to eat the best cuisine there.
Where is the real Philly Chase deck from? I want to know.
All right, last thing before the show is directly patreon.com/commandzone. We shout out a lucky patron every single episode, and we play games with them on Discord. We talk to them. We answer your questions. There's so many cool benefits. You can only find out if you go to patreon.com/commandzone. But this week's episode is dedicated to Thomas Brooks. Thomas.
Thanks, Thomas.
You rock.
You rock.
Okay, we have 12 new multicolored legendary creatures in Phyrexia. All will be one, so we're not going to have time to cover them all, but the ones that we are skipping are very similar to commanders from the past, or are just sort of more balanced for 1v1 formats. We've always seen this be the case.
There's a few legends that we're probably not going to see in the command zone very much, and there's not a huge amount of synergy that you can build. But if we're missing a commander that you were excited about, sorry about that. Leave us a comment about how you're building it and what you're excited about.
Okay, let's get right into it. This first one is a big whammy. It is the 4-color commander of the set. It's Atraxa, once again.
The only.
Atraxa, Grand Unifier. All right, here comes the behemoth text and mana cost. It is 3 generic and then a green, white, blue, and black. 7 mana total. It's a 4-color commander, all the colors but red. WTF. It's a 7/7 legendary creature, Phyrexian Angel, with flying, vigilance, death touch, and lifelink. We've seen those stats
on
before.
Atraxa.
The original. Now here's the big whammy. When Atraxa enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each card type, you may put a card of that type from among the revealed cards into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So here we go. We have Artifact, Battle, Creature, Enchantment, Instant, Land, Planeswalker, Sorcery. I said one name in there I've never heard as a card type before.
Battle What's a battle?
What is a battle? So we kind of get like a double spoiler preview here with Atraxa because we know now that battle is probably a special new card type introduced in Phyrexia All Will Be One. But
maybe. I mean, we haven't seen any battles, so it's good. It's probably coming in a future set.
Yeah, and also don't forget Shapeshifter. I think counts as a battle, right?
Not
card type.
Yeah, not Shapeshifter. The one that is not mentioned on the card is Tribal.
Tribal, that's right.
Which is still a card type and still counts for Atraxa, but it's not listed on the card because I don't think they plan to print any new ones.
Yeah, having a tribal sorcery and stuff is definitely kind of like, that is I think that it's high on the storm scale. I don't know if they're going to do that again anytime soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so this is just nuts on its face. This is look at 10 cards, maybe draw. How many were there?
I like
5,
8.
6, 7. You could potentially draw 8 cards.
It's insane. I mean, this is a very powerful ETB. This is a ton of selection. I definitely think that Atraxa could be looked at as a combo commander for basically any combo, as long as the two pieces are different types.
Yeah.
And it's extremely open-ended, right? I think it's kind of hard to build around this commander. It's just sort of really powerful, regardless of what you put in it, as long as you have a decent balance between all of the types.
Yeah, it's a good stuff deck in a lot of ways. It reminds us of Niv Mizzet Reborn, but that one's only putting in color pairs of cards
that's
into
like
your hand.
more of a build around than this. This is like the cards you put in your deck are going to have card types.
You're going to have lands. You're probably going to have artifacts and creatures, and then enchantment, instant sorcery, planeswalkers. Yeah, so I think Planeswalker is probably the lowest on the list of cards that you're going to have, but you're going to draw probably minimum 3 cards off of this every time. When it enters the battlefield. So let's talk about that. Entering the battlefield is the first thing that we think is obviously the most pertinent to us Commander players.
It's a huge ETB effect, which means we're gonna blank it. Blank this thing. Atraxa is screaming to be blanked, or cloned, or sacrificed, or anything that you can do to make her ETB
happen again
as many times as possible to maximize the number of cards that you have in your hand. I think a great one for this is Ephemerate. It's cheap. It's easy to pick up with Atraxa because it's in instant, and it's going to be your high priority thing. And it's if you've cast your commander for 8 mana, 7 mana, excuse me, it's easier to have 1 mana up so you can get at least one more blank on that ETB than, and
it protects your commander.
It protects your commander. Yeah. I think Ephemerate is a great one in this one.
Although maybe you don't kill Atraxa because they just cast it for 9 and then draw
more
7 cards or whatever. Yeah. Thassa, Deep Dwelling is great. This is just repeatable blink. There are a lot of things that do this in these colors. At this one, it's just at your end step, you exile a creature and then it comes back to the battlefield under your control. So every turn, if you already have Thassa out, because turn 7 is the sort of the latest you'll probably play Atraxa. Thassa might be out already, and boom, you just get 2 triggers of Atraxa, enters the battlefield, pass the turn, get another one.
A reason I like Thassa Deep Dwelling particularly above Teleportation Circle or Conjurer's Closet, which are more common, is Thassa has 2 card types. She's both an enchantment and a creature. Which means that she's easier to pick up.
It's also indestructible, which means probably never going to leave the battlefield.
That too. You can also clone her.
Yeah, you could clone Atraxa, get 2, and then you're really in business. One of my new favorite cards, I just bought like 16 of them because I think it goes in all the decks I want it to go in. It's Irenicus's Vile Duplication. It's a 4 mana sorcery, 3 in the blue, and it just makes a token copy of a target creature, except it has flying and isn't legendary if that creature was before.
Spark Double does a similar thing. I think that probably goes in this deck as well, except it enters with a +1 counter. So now she's an 8/8.
Yeah, no problem. Obviously, you want to have cheap, like you said, cheap ways to protect it. Ephemerate's a good one, but there's also cards like Malcator Rebirth, which is a MDFC, so it kind of is like a land as well. And you have Kai's Ghost Form. So that's an enchantment aura, and that's great because you can pick both of these up.
Definitely. When you're building, you want to keep an eye on like all of the different ways I can protect Atraxa and make sure you're diversifying the card types. And there is a good way to do this. And I think it's prioritizing in the build cards with multiple card types. Because if you have an artifact land, or if you have an enchantment land or an enchantment creature or an enchantment artifact, it just means that you could be like, okay, I'm going to choose this artifact for sure. And then I could pick this one to be my enchantment. Or if you have another enchantment you really like, okay, I'll pick artifact for this one.
Right.
So it just gives you a little bit more selection and means it's a little bit easier to hit more all of your types on ETB.
You could technically get 2 creatures by getting Dryad of the Elysian Grove, which is great at here, and then that Thassa as your enchantment.
Sure.
I like that a lot. So enchantment creatures, I think, is an easy one to go with, and seems to work well in this deck because Dryad lets you play more lands. It also lets your lands tap for the 4 different colors that you're gonna need to cast your commander.
Yep. One I really like is Destiny Spinner, especially if you have an 7 mana commander. Excuse me, Destiny Spinner.
7 mana commander.
7 mana, Jesus.
Should be 8.
Creature and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. So it means that if you're spending 7 mana on Atraxa, she is going to enter the battlefield.
Yeah.
And might get removed right away, but at least you're going to get that ETB. So I like Destiny Spinner a lot.
Yep. Gloom Shrieker, I like this one. When it enters the battlefield, you return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, and it's an enchantment creature, Cat Beast.
Yeah, it's just a little Eternal Witness that has a little bit of upside in this deck.
Yeah, would you play this over Eternal Witness? I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Because you're okay with the mana there.
Ornithopter of Paradise is a card I'm putting in almost every deck without green.
Artifact creature.
It's an artifact creature in this deck, so it taps for all of your colors, and it's easy to pick up with an Atraxa ETB.
Yeah, and you're also, again, very happy to play these on the early turns should you have them.
Yeah.
And Ornithopter of Paradise is, again, one of those creatures that loves to hold a sword. Loves to hold any kind of stuff like that too. Like the Birds of Paradise with a sword. You're like, oh my gosh, what has happened?
He holds it in his little beak.
Yeah. Phyrexian Metamorph, one of my favorite cards of all time, also an artifact creature, also a clone. So if you don't care about the legendary rule, you could just play the Phyrexian Metamorph, copy your Atraxa, let the Metamorph die, but you still get the enter the battlefield ability.
Yeah. Just a very strong artifact creature.
Yep.
Like I said before, I think artifact lands are probably worth putting in this deck. They tap for 2. They're indestructible. So these are the bridge cycle from Modern Horizons. It's like Razortide Bridge.
Yeah, they do white blue for Razortide.
Is the white blue one, and there's a full set for the Atraxa colors. So they tap for 2, and then they're easy to
2 colors of mana, not 2 mana.
2, yeah, you're right. They tap for 2 colors. Jeez, that would be insane.
The other nice thing is that they're indestructible, because if you have like Sea of the Synod, which is just the old Mirrodin, I think, artifact lands, I've seen those get blown up by Vandal Blasts.
I've had mine
left
blown
and
up.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely like these dual lands because you're playing a 4-color deck and because they're indestructible. So that downside is definitely mitigated a little bit.
Yep. And back again to Tribal. Again, it's not listed on Atraxa, but it should count. You have cards like Bitter Blossom. It's Tribal Enchantment. Lignify, which is a pretty good removal spell. Turns something into a 0/4 Tree Folk. And then Crypt Swap. All are playable in these colors.
And they're just a free pickup because you're not going to have a ton of tribal spells, so they don't take up another slot when you pick them up, which is nice.
Yeah, and you're okay. Like, again, you're running Crib Swap instead of Beast Within, right? Because it's a tribal instant.
Or instead
both,
of swords. I don't know. It's
I think you still run them swords.
It only hits creatures Crib Swap. It's still pretty good.
Yeah,
I think it's quite good.
Okay, ramp it up. 7 mana is a lot. We've seen commanders like Damia, Sage of Stone, cost 7, and last time I played with a Damia deck, that card did not get cast.
It's so
they just had
expensive.
other things to do. Yeah, 7 mana is a lot. So I think you got to be dedicated somewhat to ramping out so that you can actually cast your commander, because this deck, you need to. Damia just looks so bad in comparison to Atraxa now, right?
It's insane. I mean, you just draw so many cards
instantly
away.
You'll need to wait, yeah.
I think Mirari's Wake is great in this deck. It's an enchantment. Mana doublers go a really long way. I think, especially because Atraxa draws you so many cards, you want to be able to get those cards out of your hand as well. So you're not going to discard, or you're not like just getting a bunch of cards stuck in your hand. So making sure that your deck can create a ton of mana, I think, is very valuable.
Yeah, and a lot of times, let's say you have like a Great Henge plus another card that has green in it in your hand. It just gets really hard to cast without cards like Mirari's Wake, because you just only have so much access to green in a 4-color deck.
Yeah.
Unless all of your lands are tapping for 2 colors, sometimes you can get caught where you're like, oh shoot, I can't actually play 3 of these cards now because I don't have any more blue mana or whatever it is. Bloom Tenor, another really great mana dork in a 4-color deck, is great to add 4 mana.
And the price has come down a long way. So pick up your Bloom Tenors now if you haven't already.
And they reprinted the crap out of that one.
Yeah. Like I said, you're going to have all these cards in your hand. You really want ways to get them out. I think a great option in this deck is Hunting Grounds.
Ooh,
it is an enchantment for green and a white. It has Threshold. So you need 7 or more cards in your graveyard for this to happen. But when you're drawing this many cards, I think that's doable.
Yeah, you probably discard the hand size too.
I think you can hit Threshold fairly consistently. It says whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may put a creature card from your hand into play.
Ooh.
So As long as you have Threshold, any creature card in your hand just gets put into the battlefield without paying any mana.
Yeah. And hey, you're already casting a 7-mana commander. Why not a 10-mana enchantment with Omniscience?
Omniscience. I think this is probably an Omniscience deck.
I think so.
Because it just keeps... If you blink your commander, you draw 5 more cards. You cast, blink your commander, draw 5. And... Yeah, I think this is a greedy deck, and Omniscience goes in greedy decks, which I like.
Yeah.
I think Show and Tell, even. Speaking of greedy cards. Yeah,
I think a scary card at the table.
Show and Tell is a very scary thing, but when you have like 15 cards in hand and you know Omniscience is in your deck, like Show and Tell Omniscience is an insane move.
Right. Yeah, because you can pull that off as early as turn 3 or whatever.
Right. And you can pick them up separately because they're an enchantment and a sorcery. So
yeah, very good. Very good. There's also Kodama of the East Tree. I like this a lot because whenever a permanent enters the battlefield, you get to put another one in that's lower mana value, which is great. You can get lands in this way. You can cheat stuff in, but you're just going to have cards you have to unload out of your hand.
Yeah, it just means every time you tap mana for one thing, you get another card out of your hand.
Yeah. Okay, another interesting part here is the fact that this does have a high CMC. It's 7 mana. We've talked about this 7 times now. Mm-hmm. And there are some cards in Magic's history that like you to have a high mana value commander because there actually are benefits to it. Mm-hmm. So this is something else I think you could consider running some of these cards because the upside is actually much better. And you usually see this in like Dragon decks and stuff.
For sure.
It's a 10 mana or whatever.
Yeah.
But Stinging Study, 4 in the black, you draw X cards, you lose X life, where X is the mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or the command zone.
5 mana draw 7 is huge.
And it's an instant.
Yeah.
And your commander has lifelink, so that life loss isn't actually going to really hurt you as long as your commander can swing once.
One I found that I like is Majestic Genesis. It's 6 green for a sorcery. Again, one of these greedy big spells. I think Omniscience deck. It says, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. You may put any number of permanent cards from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So you reveal 7 cards. And any permanents you hit, any lands, any creatures, any enchantments, any artifacts, just all on the battlefield.
Throw them down. There's also Cloud Kill, which is from the same cycle of Majestic Genesis. It's not as good. It's a board wipe for 6 mana, but it says all creatures get -X, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or the command zone.
Yeah.
So this could even just be, hey, I need to clear the board before I play my Atraxa.
I was going to say
-7 should kill most things.
Turn 6 Cloud Kill, turn 7 Atraxa is like, what?
There's also the Vision cycle. So all of these are spells that have this have a flashback ability that you can cast from the graveyard, and it costs X less, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own, either on the battlefield or in the command zone. So we'll just read one of them. Visions of Dominance, 2 in a green. It's a sorcery. You put a 1/1 counter on target creature, then you double the number of 1/1 counters on it. Sounds like an Atraxa deck, the original. Mm-hmm. But you can flash it back for 8 green. But in this case, it's actually just going to cost 1 green from the graveyard. You're probably discarding cards. You're looking to hit that threshold with your Hunting Grounds. These seem like there's 4 of them, obviously, for the 4 colors. Mm. I would say Visions of Duplicity is my favorite. It's for 2 in the blue for a sorcery. You exchange control of 2 target creatures you don't control. I love this kind of effect.
Whoop.
Yeah, whoop. And then flashback 8 blue, but it's going to be just 1 blue from the graveyard.
Yeah, unfortunately, my favorite of this cycle is the red one, and you can't put it in this deck. But I do like the idea that you can pitch these, and they're just a free spell from the graveyard that only costs 3.
Yeah.
Very powerful stuff.
Yeah, and you want some powerful sorceries that live in the graveyard as well, too, that do a good job there. Like Echo of Eons, I could also see being a great card in this deck.
I wanted to talk about this a little bit because I think as commander players, when we see a strong ETB on a commander, we're like, we got to blink it and blink it as much as possible.
Where are all the blinking cards?
We run Teleportation Circle, we run Conjurer's Closet, we run all of the blink it again. And I worried that that's not the best way to play Atraxa. I think being like, if you blink this 2 times in the whole game,
you have drawn enough cards.
You are good.
You're good. You're set. Don't build a massive blink package around this 7 mana.
Yeah, like you can build, a 4-color blink deck, and that's sweet. But it doesn't feel like the whole deck wants to be built around blinking Atraxa.
Yeah.
Because once she's on the battlefield, you're not going to draw a ton of cards that are better than a 7/7 Vigilance, Lifelink, Flying, Death Touch creature. Like, just start hitting people. Yeah. You get this down and you have all these cards. I think the cards you want in your hand are just protection for Atraxa. Mm-hmm. It sort of has this coma effect where it's like you've spent all this mana to get this on the battlefield. You want counterspells. You want ephemerate. You want ways to keep Atraxa from going away.
Yeah.
And I think blink spells are probably the best way to do that because you double your value, obviously. But
yeah.
Don't get carried away just blinking this thing, because having all those cards in your hand doesn't do you any good if you can't get them on the battlefield.
Yep. That's why it also is kind of an omniscience deck. But yeah, I think if you do this one time, you're going to find that your hand size goes from 3 to like 7 or 8. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to go, oh, I actually have everything I kind of need right now. Let me chill. I don't need to just sit here and get the max value out of this thing.
Yeah. Sometimes while you're getting value, everyone else is killing you.
Yeah.
It's hard to do when you have a huge lifelinker, I suppose.
Yeah. I would say if your entire deck is built around other enter the battlefield abilities and then you're playing your Bragos and stuff in this deck, then yeah, sure, maybe you can have more of a blink package. But yeah, I agree that don't just focus on blinking the commander. There's plenty more things to do, including a 3-turn kill because it's a 7/7 with commander damage.
Start swinging.
Good job, Atraxa. That card is crazy.
It's really good. This next one is very cool, too. Speaking of value. Uzuri is back. It's Uzuri, Stalker of Spheres.
Ooh.
For 2, a green and a blue, this is a legendary Phyrexian elf warrior. That's a 3/3. It says, when Uzuri enters the battlefield, you may pay 3. If you do, proliferate twice.
Ooh.
And whenever you proliferate, draw a card.
Okay.
That's some Simic value stuff right there.
Yeah, so you basically, for 7 mana, you can enter the battlefield, proliferate twice, draw 2 cards. Mm-hmm. For 4 mana, it's just a proliferate matters deck, and you're going to draw cards from that.
Yes.
So yeah, that's pretty good. I like that.
It's pretty good, and it says exactly what it wants us to do.
Yeah, proliferate. Swing. No, wait, hold on.
There's some really great ways to do this, to proliferate. We've seen 2 of the best proliferate engines in Commander so far have been Flux Channeler and Evolution Sage.
Yep. Evolution Sage wants lands to enter the battlefield to proliferate. Flux Channeler just wants you to cast non-creature spells.
Yeah, I mean, Evolution Sage turns your commander into an Atraxa.
Yeah.
Not Atraxa, I'm sorry. Tetiova.
Oh, I see, right.
Like, it's like a landfall, proliferate,
draw
a card.
Yeah.
And then Flux Channeler like turns it into... not Kaikar. And anyway, you cast a non-creature spell, you draw a card.
Yeah. Good times, basically.
Pretty good. There's a lot of ways that we've used previously to proliferate. Inexorable Tide says whenever you cast a spell, proliferate.
Yeah, and then you have like random fight spells, like Smell Fear, just says proliferate on the card, and also a creature farts on another. A creature farts on another creature you don't control, and
he dies.
And hopefully. He dies, yeah, hopefully. But yeah, proliferating has been around for quite a bit, and so there are just so many different ways to just do it over and over again. I really love the Flux Channeler Evolution Stages. Inexorable Tide feels a little too expensive to actually do, but if you're drawing a card every time now you cast a spell, that changes the equation quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, you're in Simic, so I think the ramp part to get to the 7 mana to pay that kicker cost on your commander.
Yeah.
I think that there is a world where Inexorable Tide does fit in this deck just fine.
Yeah, and we'll talk also about ways to really cheat those mana costs by proliferating onto charge counters on mana rocks and stuff too.
So they've printed a number of proliferate spells in the past, but they've really been careful with it. It tends to be expensive. With the exception of the 2 creatures we've mentioned, it tends to get like really add to the cost of a spell. But there's a lot of new cards in All Will Be One that proliferate for very cheap. And we've got to mention them because they're sweet.
Yeah, this first one is, they've seen them kind of doing this as a pattern on cards, which is just like, all right, it's got 3 options. One of them sort of tied to the set, and the other 2 are just generically good.
Yeah.
Canker Bloom is that for this set. It's a 2 mana 3/2. You can pay 1 to sacrifice it, and you get to choose one of 3 options: destroy an target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or proliferate.
2 mana 3/2. It's huge.
Yeah, so this is just so good. I think this is going to see a lot of commander play because sometimes you will have decks that incidentally just want proliferate, but you also just want to have a recurable, destroy enchantment / artifact, right? You regrow this thing, you get this back from the graveyard, you do it again. We kind of saw you do this with a card, Cathar's thingy, something in your mono white deck. There was a card that does a similar thing, blows up an artifact or an enchantment.
Oh, yeah, Cathar Commando.
Yeah, Cathar Commando, right?
Yeah.
That card is amazing, and Canker Bloom has a lot of those same elements.
Yeah.
And it just can proliferate as well.
It goes in every Marin deck.
Yeah.
As it dies and you can proliferate the experience cards. Gross. The other one that I've really been high on is Unnatural Restoration. 1 and a green, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Proliferate. And this is on a sorcery. So it's just a regrow that proliferates on rate.
just better regrow.
It's just great.
Yeah. Okay. New card, Tekuthal Inquiry Dominus. It's a 4-mana 3/5. It says if you would proliferate twice instead. So that with your commander, nuts. If you're playing for your commander and you pay 7 and you do the thing, you can proliferate 4 times.
Gross.
Yikes. Okay, so a couple more actually. Ones that protect your commander.
Will protect your commander, but also re-trigger
the enter the battlefield
this enter the battlefield ability. Is Planar Incision. It's 1 and a green for an instant. It exile target artifact or creature, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Something to proliferate, perhaps.
Also can sometimes just blink other things on the board if they're tokens to kill them. Teferi's Time Twist, you exile permanent you control, and then that card comes back to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And then if it's a creature, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it, which gives you something to proliferate.
So you can blink your commander and repay that 3 to proliferate twice.
Yeah, and those are both instants as well, so you can wait, to do it, and then you'll have the mana as well.
So here's the question.
Yeah.
What are we proliferating?
Yeah, there's a lot of options. You got +1/+1 counters. You have weird things like charge counters and artifacts. You also have poison counters. So many options. Should I do all of them, Rachel?
No, probably just pick one.
Yeah.
I think there's like room for some crossover. You could do a little bit of charge counters and a huge amount of +1/+1 counters. Right. Incidentally, planeswalkers are better in a proliferate deck than a lot of instants and sorceries. But generally, I think you want to pick a lane and sort of splash the other kinds of counters.
Yeah, because you only need to get one counter on something to begin to proliferate it, right? You don't need to build a full-on infect deck, but if you have one creature that can just randomly give some poison counters out, then the proliferating begins.
Yeah, it's so definitely trend toward cards that have counters over effects that don't have counters. But I think picking a lane is going to be the best way to maximize your synergy. So here are the lanes. The +1/+1 counters, I think, is
the most obvious.
It's what Simic does best. There was a cool one that came out recently that is Phyrexian flavored. It's Defiler of Vigor.
It's probably the best of the Defilers. I think you and Josh talked about.
I agree.
This,
yeah,
because you have a lot of just permanent spells in green that have green in the mana cost. And so you can pay Phyrexian mana basically instead. And those green permanents come into the battlefield. When you cast a green permanent, all your creatures get +1/+1 counters.
Yeah, put a +1/+1 on each creature.
Each creature. So you got your Manadors coming out for 2 life. Boom, you put all these counters on, proliferate. They're huge. Pretty cool.
I think in this deck, you really want to prioritize stuff that puts +1 counters on everything.
Yeah.
Because all you need is one for the proliferate train to begin.
One, all will be.
All is one. So the next one does that. It's Master Chef. It says commander creatures you control have this creature enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it.
Yeah.
So they enter the battlefield, they get an extra counter, and then your commander and the rest of your deck helps proliferate them.
Yep. The same thing goes for Master Biomancer, and especially if you make Master Biomancer big, then each creature's coming in with that many +1/+1 counters on its based on its toughness. Phagus, a new Warhammer card. You can tap it to add a mana of any color, and then if you cast a creature with it, it comes in the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it.
Yeah, it's a tidy little mana dork that furthers the plan.
Yeah.
Great win con for this deck is Simic Ascendancy. It says a number of things. You can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and then whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. Then at the beginning of your upkeep, if Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters on it, you win the game.
Yeah.
20 is nothing in +1/+1 counter world.
Yeah, especially if you're just proliferating, you're finding ways to double it. There's lots of different ways to get lots of counters on this.
You can also proliferate the counters on Simic Ascendancy.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you get a trigger of proliferate, you proliferate all your +1 counters. So if you put 4 and then you proliferate the Simic Ascendancy, that goes up, and then you put those 4 on it. It's just gets out of control.
Master Biomancer, if let's say it's like a 4/6 plus Simic Ascendancy, 5 creatures come out. That is enough to put all the 20 counters on Simic Ascendancy.
Ugh, very strong.
Yeah, there's also some combo potential here with Sage of Hours. This is a spell that you remove all of the +1/+1 counters from it, and then for each 5 counters removed this way, you take an extra turn. So if you can find a way to get 4 +1/+1 counters on this every turn and then remove them, or 5, you will be able to take infinite turns.
Yeah, so if you have some sort of crazy proliferate train going, you can really, really just just combo out. Azuri Claw of Progress. Old Azuri really helps Sage of Hours along. If you can proliferate the experience counters that Azuri gives you, it will put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature you control, where X is the number of experience counters you control. So that's just a free way to put, up to 5 counters on Sage of Hours every turn.
Yeah, otherwise you want to have Master Chef or Biophagus so that your Sage of Hours comes in with at least one +1/+1 counter, and then you're just going to proliferate from there. Charge it up. The next category talks about charge counters, and this is my favorite because you have an Everflowing Chalice and you cast it with 1 charge counter on it. You can proliferate that charge counter, and now it taps for more mana. It becomes a Soul Ring at 2. If you have Astral Cornucopia out, this costs XXX. So let's say you pay X equal to 1, 3 mana total, comes in with 1 charge counter, and then you tap it to choose a color. You add 1 mana of that color for each charge counter. So if you proliferate this thing to 2 or 3, you are tapping to add tons of mana.
Yeah, it's crazy. Replicating Ring is really fun in this deck. You have to get up to, what is it?
8?
8?
Yeah.
8 night counters on Replicating Ring, and then it explodes into 8 Replicating Rings. So it is just a 3 mana snow artifact that taps for 1 mana, and it could turn into 8 manaliths.
8?
Snow manaliths.
That's pretty nuts. Blast Zone is kind of fun. It enters the battlefield with charge counters as a land, and then you can put charge counters on it, or you can tap 3 sack it and destroy each non-land permanent with mana value equal to the number of charge counters on Blast Zone. So this is a way to selectively board wipe. Because note, when you proliferate, you do not have to actually add a counter to something, and you get to choose around the entire board, so you can proliferate what's on your opponent's boards, as well as just be like, you know what, this Blast Zone, I want to keep it at 2, so I blow up everyone's mana rocks and nothing else.
Yeah, but just being able to control the number of counters on your Blast Zone is really strong and free because it's in a land slot. This next one is a bit of a mess, but I love it. It's Strixhaven Stadium.
It is. There's so much text.
It is a 3 mana artifact that taps to add colorless. Put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Ding. So whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, remove a point counter from Strixhaven Stadium. And whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium.
Oh, we're Quidditch now.
If it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all, and that player loses the game.
Wow. So this is a lose con for other players. It's not a win con like Simic Ascendancy.
Yeah.
But this is great. You get to control the points of the game by proliferating them up until you get to 10. And you win the game, someone else loses the game.
You still have to hit with at least one creature, but you don't have to hit with 10 creatures in one turn. It's kind of crazy. But it's a fun alternate win con if you're doing charge counter things.
Yeah, one last charge counter thing is the Magistrate's Scepter. There's combo potential here. You can normally just pay 4 to put and tap it to put a charge counter on it, or you can tap it to remove 3 charge counters and take an extra turn after this one. Now, notably, you got to have 1 charge counter on it to start.
Yeah.
And so typically that means you play it and then you tap 4 to tap it to add the charge counter. There are ways to move counters and stuff with other things, but this is just a way for you to get those turns quickly. Because normally you play this card, everyone goes, that's never going to happen.
Yeah. But then, if you pay 3, you pay 4, you put 1 counter on it, 2 proliferates is nothing for this deck. 3 proliferates means you keep the counter on it and you can keep the train going.
That's right. That's a good point. Get it to 4, remove it to 1, keep that counter on.
And then you can just proliferate 3 times a turn. Seems good.
Yep.
Okay. The next thing you can do with this deck is Planeswalkers. Load it up. Simic Super Friends. There are some good ones. The best ones, of course, are it's Narset, part of Veils is very strong. Oko, Thief of Crowns, Teferi, Master of Time. These are all probably the best and most popular Planeswalkers in Commander.
Yeah. There's also the original Teferi from the Planeswalker that you could be as Commander that some people have EDH decks built around. So a lot of good options in Simic for Planeswalkers.
The ones I wanted to call out specifically are the ones that you can ultimate with just 1 or 2 proliferates.
Okay.
Because that seems like the really strong way to build around this deck. And so the first one is Nissa Vital Force. She's a 5 mana planeswalker, comes in with 5 loyalty, and she has a -6 that says you get an emblem that says whenever a land enters a battlefield under your control, you may draw a card.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So if you can proliferate twice, you get an emblem.
And you keep Nissa.
Or
just proliferate once and just ult instantly and then always be drawing cards for the rest of the game.
Yeah. Tamiyo Completed Sage is a good one. It's got a -7. It comes in with 5 loyalty if you cast her for her full cost, and has a -7 that says create Tamiyo's Notebook, a legendary colorless artifact token with spells you cast cost 2 less to cast, and tap, draw a card.
Oh my gosh. The mana reduction here is nuts.
Yeah. If you can get this in play, you won't have it in play long. It's not indestructible or anything. Someone's going to do something about it.
Yeah. But at least you can draw a card and maybe cast a couple of spells for free for that.
The other cool one is Tezzeret, Betrayer of Flesh.
Interesting. How do we betray the flesh with his ultimate?
It's got an emblem that says whenever an artifact you control becomes tapped, draw a card. It comes in with 4. The ult is 6.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I like all of these a bit. Obviously, the Planeswalker ult thing, we've seen this before because you can also put in Doubling Season or play Deep Glow Skate. And just, again, having a Planeswalker that you add 2 counters to when you cast it makes it that much harder to kill. And which means that you probably have another shot at getting to Ultimate or even just their minus ability again with Proliferate. So there's a lot of good options here. You're always going to be able to get value out of them, I think, as long as you have some of your Proliferate engines online.
Speaking of Proliferate engines, there's a new card that helps you do that.
Oh, yeah. This card's crazy, too.
You want to read it?
Ichor Moon Gauntlet. It's 2 in the blue for an artifact. Planeswalkers you control have 2 additional loyalty abilities. The first one costs 0, and it just says Proliferate. And the second one says -12, take an extra turn after this one. And if that wasn't enough, there's more text. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose a counter on target permanent, put an additional counter on that of that kind on that permanent. Notably, this doesn't say Proliferate.
Yeah, because it's only one permanent.
Yeah,
that
you can't choose the whole thing.
Can add,
But that means your Planeswalkers, your charge counters, your +1/+1 counters, you name it. And it's similar to Flux Channeler. You want to be casting non-creature spells, and blammo, you're just in it.
Yeah, Super Friends decks can be hard though.
Yeah, I actually don't like them at all.
It's a lot of game actions. It's a lot of choices.
So if you're thinking about building a Planeswalker Super Friends deck, typically they're a grind to play against because you're adding extra life to the table with all your Planeswalkers. Also, they can make for slow games because no one actually knows what all of them do. And so they have to make more decisions about who to swing at, how to get blockers out of the way, or if they should just go for your face. So I think if you're going to build a deck like this, build it specifically with win cons in mind so that you know what your Planeswalkers do. When you play them, you're like, this is how I win the game, not this is how I drag it out and make everyone go, when do I get to sleep?
You just make sure you have a plan for them because it can be tricky to close a game out just with
I've seen so many Planeswalker decks go like, hold on, I need to read this Planeswalker again. Give me a second. Do I want to do that one or this one? And then at that point, you're already wasting a lot of time. And
ordering them is tricky. Yeah.
And your brain might go, oh, I forgot to activate this one and that one, right? So it's a lot of mental task upkeep. If you can do it quickly, more power to you. But just keep in mind, this is a pattern we've seen over and over again with Planeswalker decks.
The next thing you can do with this deck is sweet and very on flavor. It's an Infect deck.
Complete the Gatewatch because they're partially completed and we got to get all of them. So this is just poison.
Yeah. There's a ton of great poison creatures in both blue and green. Green's obviously stronger, but blue is Bladed Agent.
Oh, yeah.
Which is unblockable and has Infect. It also has Viral Drake, which is flying and has Infect, and has an activated ability that says 3 and a blue. Proliferate.
Yeah, pretty good. Triumph of the Hordes. This is a great way to just give everyone 2 to 3 poison counters, and then you just proliferate, right? Because I don't think you're going for that Alpha Strike like a typical Infect deck.
Yeah, you could, but like, why? When your deck is full of Proliferate, you might as well hit somebody for 2 or 3.
Yeah, why not play Corrupted Conscience, steal a great creature? Maybe it's a 10/10 with Trample. Maybe you could also Grafted Exoskeleton or Spinebiter because that assigns its combat damage as though it weren't blocked.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you get someone up to 6 Infect, you should be able to kill them or both Proliferate pretty easily as long as your hand has some gas in it.
Yeah, you're going to need a high density of Proliferate spells if you're playing that way, but I think it's absolutely doable with this.
Yeah, and again, just having a Blighted Agent in this deck and nothing else, Infect-wise, is, I think, totally justifiable because it's just an alternate win con at that point.
Yeah. Sneak in an Inkmoth Nexus.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great call. It's a land, too.
Yeah.
And you're in green-blue, so you have ways to get all your lands out. Yay. Jimmy's like, what are lands?
This deck reminds me a little bit of Pyrrha and Toothy. And I feel like that's another way that you can build this deck, is just doing like the +1 counters and draw thing that Simic does so well. So Pier is like, this is a deck that has existed for a while, so you can look on EDH Rec or check some old videos to see how Pier and Toothy are built. But it's +1 counters and draw stuff, and draw a lot.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Toothy will draw you 1 billion cards.
But there's some cool things you can do with Proliferate. Ominous Seas is a cool one. It's an enchantment for 1 and a blue that says whenever you draw a card, put a foreshadow counter on Ominous Seas, and then remove 8 foreshadow counters from Ominous Seas and create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token.
That'd be cool if you made a few of those in the game.
Pretty sweet.
You can also cycle it.
Yeah, there you go. If you're like, I'm not drawing that many cards, I'm not proliferating anything, get it out of here.
Yep. Midnight Clock, I like this because you're trying to tick tock all the way up to midnight, but sometimes it takes a long time and you want to get that effect faster. With Proliferate, you can also kind of control when it happens because you are going to be shuffling your hand and graveyard into your library and drawing a fresh 7.
Yeah.
So you can sort of time it. So like, all right, my hand is now empty. Blam, let's Proliferate, hit that Midnight Clock up to 12 and instantly get a brand new 7.
One I really like in this deck is Mindless Automaton. This is a 4-mana artifact creature that enters with 2 +1/+1 counters. It has 2 activated abilities. 1, discard a card, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and remove 2 +1/+1 counters on it from it, draw a card.
Oh, yeah.
So if you can keep putting +1 counters on this thing, you can keep churning through it. And every time you proliferate, you draw a card, then you remove 2, you draw another card, you do a wheel, and get a counters. Simic!
Yeah, that's, I think, the big takeaway here is that this is a Simic deck. It can do every value-based thing that you want to in the game. You're going to have no problem with lands or card draw the entire time. So I think just choose your flavor and go with it. You know, I think the Simic Value Town build everyone's done it or has seen some version of it. So it's probably not as interesting. I want to see more Infect out there. Let's go.
Yeah.
Craig has gotten me. I've been
Simic,
completed.
aggro. Jimmy's been completed, you guys. Help me.
Maybe I shouldn't have revealed that. Maybe I should keep that to myself.
You're blowing it. You're a terrible sleeper agent.
Nah, I'm woke. Okay. Next up, we have a new black-green Glissa.
She's back.
She's back. Glissa's back. Slaying the sun.
Yeah.
Kind of intense.
Look, she's feeling extra. It's Glissa Sunslayer. 1 a black and a green for a legendary creature Phyrexian zombie elf. She is a 3/3 with first strike and death touch. Gross. Whenever Glissa Sunslayer deals combat damage to a player, choose 1. You may draw a card and you lose a life.
Okay.
You may destroy target enchantment.
Oh.
Or remove up to 3 counters from target permanent.
Not as interesting.
I think it's very interesting.
Well, I'm saying that last one's not as interesting. I like the first 2 a lot.
I think the last one's quite interesting.
Well, great. We just talked about Proliferate. So Glissa, we've seen this similar to, I think her other version is like a first strike death toucher. Very hard to block, right? Or she just has death touch and returns artifacts. In this case, she's blown up enchantments instead. This feels like an old school commander because it's like, deal combat damage to a player? What the heck's that about?
It's pretty sweet. I mean, first strike and death touch is impossible to block because it deals the damage first and the creature just dies.
Yeah, death touch.
It's just, you have no chance. It could be a 25/25 and it will die to this 3/3.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't have indestructible. So I think there's definitely a space in this deck for combat damage triggers.
Yep.
And really like leaning into attacking and the combat damage on your commander. So Sword of the Animist is really great.
Oh, yeah. It's going to ramp you out. It's going to give you so many basic lands. Again, black-green, too. You can probably am a lot, so you're not going to worry about that.
And your commander's so cheap that just like getting Sword of the Animus on 2, commander on 3, equip attack, stack, ramp, and you're off to the races there. Staff of Titania is a new one.
Yeah.
That looks sort of like, Sword of the Animus.
But better, in a way.
Yeah.
In a way. It's a 2-mana artifact equipment. It gets +X for X is the number of the forest you control. So let's say it's like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But when it attacks, you don't even need to deal combat damage. You create a 1/1 green forest dryad land creature token. So it's pretty cool. It is affected by summoning sickness, but you're basically ramping but with a creature.
Yeah.
And if you have all these equipments, having more creatures to put the equipment on actually seems like a great call to sort of diversify your board state.
Ugh, what a nightmare to block. If you have like 2, 3, you're just getting hit with Glissa so fast, so hard.
Yeah. And you're probably incentivized to try and block Glissa too, especially if you have an enchantment.
For sure.
But here's the thing, I could swing at you, be like, hey, I need to blow up that thing.
Yeah. You want to take a hit?
Yeah.
I'll kill this for 6
And
setting.
you're like, yeah, I'll take 4. Ugh, okay, fine.
So combat damage triggers on equipments are good, as well as attack triggers. Mask of Memory is one of my favorites. When it deals damage, you draw 2 cards and you discard 1.
Yeah, I like that. Wand of Orcus is a Dungeons and Dragons card. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, you create that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. So that's pretty sweet. Just make a huge board state.
Ugh.
And then cards like Quietus Spike, I just love. These just have players' life totals upon hitting them. And again, very hard to block Glissa. You'll probably find a way to get this in.
It puts them in a lose-lose situation where it's like, okay, if I block, I lose my creature, but if I don't block, I lose half my life.
I think you also want to have equipment and things that give your creature trample, because if you're adding in all these combat damage triggers, then that's going to be really important too.
Well, and trample with Death Touch and First Strike is you only have to assign 1 damage to the creature and the rest tramples over.
Yeah.
So if you have a 3/3 and they block with a 4/4, you'd assign 1 lethal damage to the 4/4 and then the 2 remaining damage tramples over.
Chances are they're just not blocking at that point too, right?
For sure. It basically says unblockable at some point.
Yeah. So Scepter of Celebration gives +2/+0 on trample, and when it deals combat damage, you create that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens.
Yeah.
This can work in a green-black deck because it does not have the mana pip in it, even though the creatures you make are green and white.
Another cool way to give her trample that I like to use in my decks is mutate. There's some great ones with trample. Gem Razor is whenever it mutates, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls.
Cool.
So you mutate, turn her into a 4/4, blow something up, and then attack with a mutate, Death Touch,
Reach, trample.
Ugh.
And then blow another enchantment up.
And blow another enchantment
or draw
up.
a card.
Gross.
Sawtusk Demolisher mutates. Again, that Gem Razor mutates for 3. Sawtusk mutates for 4. So you can play this after you play your commander.
Yeah.
And then when you mutate Sawtusk, you destroy target non-creature permanent. You basically beast within something, and they make a 3/3 green beast. Yikes.
On 3, mutate on 4, swing for 6.
Yeah, that's like, wild. 6 trample, yeah.
So,
okay.
We said this thing's hard to block. Why not make them block?
What? What do you mean make them block?
There's lots of effects in Magic that force your opponents into blocks that aren't necessarily favorable
With
for
their
them.
first strike, Death Touch, probably Trampler.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Lure effects are very good for this kind of thing. It's 1 green, green. All for an aura, all creatures able to block enchanted creature do so.
Yeah.
So if this has trample, you say 1 here, 1 here, 1 here.
Kill your
They
whole
all
board,
die.
yeah.
My creature's still alive because she has first strike.
Yeah. Grappling Hook, similarly, it gives it double strike, so now you're doing even more damage. Yikes. Big time. I like Grappling Hook a lot. I haven't seen this card before, ever,
Well,
I don't think.
Grappling Hook also says whenever you attack, you may have target creature
Oh,
block
so you don't
it.
have to.
Yeah. So if you
Gotcha.
give it double strike, but you can also be like, you come here, block, and kill this thing.
Because Lure makes every creature block it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Grappling Hook is you just force them to block with one specific creature.
Okay. I've never seen this next creature before. It just goes to how many cards we got last year. It's Shesra, Death's Whisper, 2 black green, 1/3. When it enters the battlefield, the target creature blocks this turn if able. So that's great. Play it, make someone block. And then this is not as relevant, but at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, wait, no, it is relevant because the creature's dying.
Yeah.
You can pay 2 life to draw a card. It's like a morbid.
Yeah. It's a morbid thing. I think if you're forcing people to block and doing this lure thing, then the second ability can be more brutal, but also it just forces people into choices they do not want to make.
Yeah, no kidding.
Death Touch is also very good with bite effects. So anything that has the creature deal damage directly to creatures. One I like is Spinning Wheel Kick.
Hiya.
It is a sorcery with XX green.
I really tried.
You're a natural fighter.
Thank you.
Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each of X target creatures and or planeswalkers.
Yeah.
So if X is 2, it's just an easy kill 2. If you can make a lot of mana, you can make X5. I don't know. Go nuts.
12 mana spinning wheel kick.
I don't know.
Everything should die.
That's pretty good.
We've seen the Death Touch pingers before. Josh has done it quite a bit. Viridian Longbow allows you to turn your creature into a pinger and do the thing. Okay, so now let's get to the part that you were excited about that I wasn't as excited about, which is when Glissa does combat damage, you can also choose to remove up to 3 counters from target permanent. I'm thinking like poison counters and stuff out here. You're actually going
Well, you can remove poison counters from permanents.
That's right. I'm not a permanent.
You're not a permanent. You're ephemeral.
No,
You're in the wind.
I am ephemeral. I'm a planeswalker.
I really like Glissa with sagas because it means you can just keep your sagas rolling over and over and over again because you remove the lore counters with saga with Glissa, and then they trigger on your upkeep, and you get the first and second abilities as many times as you want them.
Not your upkeep. I'm so sorry. It is after your draw step.
Your first main phase. You're correct.
Yeah. As it enters the battlefield and after your draw step. It's so weird. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? You got Binding of the Old Gods. This blows up a non-land permanent when it comes in and finds you a forest and gives your creatures death touch. But you don't want to get to that third phase.
It already has death touch. You're good.
Yeah, exactly. So you can swing with Glissa. You can move up to 3. So you can go back to 0 and then hit 1 again. Or you can just go back to 1 and then hit 2 again.
It seems pretty sweet. Eldest Reborn is another really powerful saga. The first one is each opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. The second one is each opponent discards a card. And the third is put target creature or planeswalker from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control.
Yeah.
There's one more that's very good in the deck.
Wow, Phyrexian Scriptures.
Yeah,
so this is 2 black. The first stage, is it the stage? I forget what it's called. First part of the lore is you put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 creature, and then that becomes an artifact in addition to its other types, because stage 2 is destroy all non-artifact creatures. So if you reset this, you can start making other creatures you own artifacts.
And just keep board wiping.
Wow.
It's fun, Jimmy.
Play a little liquid metal torque in there too.
Fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
There's lots of bad counters that you can remove from your own stuff. Cumulative upkeep is a great thing. You can remove what are they called? Time counters, I think.
Yeah.
From it.
Question mark? Sure. I don't know.
Age counters.
Age counters. Because Ice Age.
Yeah.
There you go. That's when it started, right?
I looked through all of the green and black cards that have cumulative upkeep, and there really aren't that many that are super relevant. But this one's great. It's Elephant Grass. It's a 1-mana green enchantment with cumulative upkeep 1. It says black creatures can't attack you. Non-black creatures cannot attack you unless their controller pays an additional 2 for each attacking creature.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a little green ghostly prison.
Right. So you're going to get rid of the age counters. You don't ever have to pay more than 1, pretty much, right?
Yeah. And if you don't want to, you can sacrifice it or pay for this and remove counters from this saga instead.
Yep. There's also -1 counters you can remove. Devoted Druid and Wall of Roots both put -1/1 or -0/-1 counters, and then you're able to basically, you can untap the creature and use it again, but now you're able to get even more mana out of it because the creatures won't die after putting too many of these counters on.
Yeah. You can there's plenty of counters that when you remove those things, something happens. Dark Depths is a great example of this. I mean, you'll have to hit a few times with Glissa to remove all of the age counters from Dark Depths, but Dark Depths goes in these kind of remove counters decks like Hex Parasite and Power Conduit do the same thing. There's also the black one that sacks to remove all counters from
that's right.
Dark Depths. So if you're doing the remove counters thing, there is some pieces to it.
Yeah, Josh Lequai played a Hapatra Vizier of Poisons deck that's all about putting -1/-1 counters on. There may be a build that Glissa likes with Hapatra to really go into that sort of idea.
That's cool.
Because you're putting stuff on your own stuff too, and you're obviously on other creatures.
Yeah. I will say Glissa's sweet, and I was very enthusiastic when I saw Glissa the first time.
Yeah.
I did try to build this deck, and it's extremely controlling.
Oops, you don't like to hear that.
Because you can just keep redoing the sagas over and over, and in black and green most of the sagas are destroy a creature, or they discard a card, or some sort of hate that way.
Yeah.
So keep in mind, if you're trying to build Glissa and you're excited about that it does have a tendency to get very controlling.
Come to the swamp. Get buried in my sludge. All right. Let's move on to a red-white commander. It's Jor Kadeen,
He's
first
back.
Goldwarden. He is, and not a Phyrexian.
What?
Everyone else is, though.
Everyone's a Phyrexian.
So this is red-white for a 2/2 with Trample, a human rebel, and whenever Jor attacks, it gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of equipped creatures you control. Then, if his power is 4 or greater, you draw a card. So if you have 2 equipped creatures, including Jor Kadeen himself, it gives it +2/+2. You're probably going to get power 4 or greater. This is just a red-white trampoline artifact equipment deck, it seems like. Hooray.
Yeah.
Go wide with your equipment specifically.
Yeah, this is definitely like a go wide deck because he wants you to have multiple creatures that are equipped. Mm-hmm. So it's more comparable to like the new Akiri, Akiri Fearless Voyager, which wants lots of creatures that are equipped once, versus like old Akiri, which have a ton of artifacts and you can put them all on Akiri and make her big.
Yeah. I'm glad that we're going go wide more because again, single target removal is brutal against the go tall decks.
Yeah, it also as long as Jor's power is greater than 4, you still draw a card.
Yeah.
It's whenever Jor attacks, it gets +X+X, which is, that could happen or it could not. Then if Jor's power is 4 or greater, draw a card. So
yeah, if you have
counters
two
on
counters,
him or anything like that, you would still get that draw trigger off of him.
Okay,
but we want to make him as big as possible.
Yeah, and we want to put a lot of equipment in this deck. So what are some cards, Rachel, that get cheap, easy to equip things on the battlefield?
Yeah, we want a lot of equipment without blowing the density of the deck. So Tago is...
amazing.
Goblin Weaponsmith is really great in this deck. It's whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you create an artifact token, an equipment artifact token named Rock. And that just equips for 1.
Yep.
So it's easy. If you have 3 creatures, you can make a bunch of rocks and equip them, and that fulfills Jor's desires.
Yeah, because the last thing you want, again, with these decks is always there's too many creatures or too many equipment or too many equipment and too little creatures. Mm-hmm. So Tago is great. Bloodforged Battle Axe is a card that also just keeps making more versions of itself, which is pretty good.
So you just have more and more equipment to equip to creatures once you find them.
Yeah.
You also want equipment in this deck with very cheap mana costs because I can see you moving them around a lot and cheap to cast. So I think more like value equipment is what goes in this deck rather than like the big, it gets +5/+5
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah.
So I like Skull Clamp in this deck. It's great. I mean, it's obviously good, but being able to put Skull Clamp just on one thing for 1 mana is very strong.
Yeah, there's a lot of equipment that also equip for 0, like Shuko is cool. I forget the name of it, but in Streets of Capenna, there's a equipment that turns into 2, like boxing gloves.
Yeah, Brass Knuckles.
Brass Knuckles, yeah. That's also a way to get more equipment on the battlefield, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, without creatures to hold them, you can't do anything. Fortunately, red and white loves equipment decks. They've been building this archetype just endlessly, it feels like, over the past 3 or 4 years.
And it continues in All Will Be One with the Boros equipment strategies.
So, Reckless Crew, I have a bunch of these. I really still want to find a place to put it. Maybe this is the deck. 3 and a green, you create X 2/1 red dwarf berserker creature tokens where X is the number of vehicles you control plus the number of equipment you control. So, no worries about vehicles.
Yeah.
And then for each of those tokens, you can attach an equipment you control to it. So instantly attaches, even if you have like a 5, like a really expensive, like Batterskull or whatever, it'll just instantly shook onto a Reckless Crew dwarf.
Yeah, super sweet. This next one is kind of similar, and it's new. It's in the Boros All Will Be One commander deck. It's Goldwarden's Gambit. 6 red. Keep listening. For a sorcery, it has affinity for equipment.
This is the first time I think we've ever seen that text.
That is the first. Create 5 2/2 red rebel creature tokens. They gain haste until end of turn. For each of those tokens, you may attach an equipment you control to it.
Okay.
So it's a little board in a can and automatically picks up all the swords that are on your battlefield.
And some rebel synergy because Kadeen's also a rebel. Aki Ember Keeper is your Kamigawa version of it. Whenever a non-token modified creature you control dies, you create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. So all your creatures are going to give you another creature to, again, equip stuff to. Pretty good.
Cole the Forge Master is pretty good in this deck. It's red and white for a legendary dwarf warrior. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, return it to its owner's hand. And then
Similar
creature tokens you control that are enchanted or equipped get +1/+1. So generally, it just protects the things that are equipped. So if there's a board wipe, you don't get completely blown out.
Yeah, we just listed like 5 sets and because this is Kaldheim as well, from recent years, so you can see how much support they're giving to this.
Yeah.
And then you got Pure Steel Paladin, allows you to get equip cost 0, and you also draw cards for equipment as well. So those are, I think, the absolute must-haves.
Whoa, I didn't think about Pure Steel Paladin is an ETB trigger. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. So it's great with Tago and with Bloodforce Battle Axe.
Yeah,
you can
and
make
the gloves.
Ooh. See?
Still red-white, though. Still
I like a red-white.
I know. You win with mono-white decks on game nights and all these other things. You are very good at what you do. Or extra turns, sorry. With that, I'm still traumatized from your mono-white win. I'm like, how the heck
do we let this get so far?
Yeah.
So
is this our fault?
We're making We're making creatures, we're making equipment. There's also things, including in the new set, that make both equipment and creatures, help you balance out your deck a little bit more so you're not stuck with a big pie hand of swords and no creatures, or a bunch of creatures and no swords.
So actually, Glimmer Lens is a new card. It's got this cool ability called For Mirrodin, which basically means when it enters the battlefield, you make a 2/2 red rebel creature token, and then the equipment automatically gets attached to it.
It's like living weaponish.
Yeah, it's similar to Citizen's Crowbar, which was the Capenna version of this. But whenever equipped creature and at least one other creature attacks, you draw a card.
Yeah, equip 1 and a white. That's a nice little equipment, and it comes with a creature pre-made.
Yeah, that's great.
Citizen's Crowbar is an equipment that enters with a creature, and it has white sacrifice Citizen's Crowbar, destroy target artifact or enchantment.
Oh, yeah. I think you definitely want to play this in the deck.
Yeah, it's
sure.
interaction, it's a creature, it's equipment, it's great.
You can do
Nettlesist is real strong, too.
Yep. Nettlesist might end up giving you a creature like +7, +8, +8.
Yeah, with all the equipment you're trying to make.
I have a lot of people tweet me about this card, Lizard Blades. It's 1 in a red. It's a equipment lizard, so it comes in as a creature. It's a 1/1, but you can reconfigure it for 2, and it gives the creature double strike.
Yeah, so it's a powerful effect. It's a creature and an equipment. It does exactly what this deck wants to do.
Yeah,
Plus,
cool.
your commander has trample and gets buffed, so giving him double strike is really powerful.
Yep. And of course, modified is the new way to say this creature has something on it, including equipment, but it also means auras and counters. Yeah, so Kami of these are all Neon Dynasty cards, right? Kami of Celebration, Aki Battle Squad. Both of them are going to help you get either more combat phases, or you can impulsive draw off the top of your library. And then you also have, I would say, if you need to put Kadeen into another deck, and you're going for this, like a Sheen equipment themed deck.
That's pretty cool. He's got an attack trigger, so you draw 2 cards if you have a Sheen on the battlefield.
Woo! Yeah, so Sheen as the commander, obviously, because it's red, white, black.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Sheen doesn't need more reasons to be good, by the way. Okay, we have 4 more multicolored legends to go, including a Phyrexian elephant wizard.
It's so sweet.
Never seen that before. And also a 5-color commander that is for a previously unsupported creature type. See if you can guess what that is while we'll be right back and hear a bit from our mineral sponsors.
Hello, it's me, Isu the Abominable. Here in snow, all meals are frozen. Animal, frozen. Vegetable, frozen. Puny warrior, frozen. Ugh, it's gross. But New Year is time to make change, so Isu sign up for Factor. Factor is service that deliver fresh, never frozen meals that ready to eat in just 2 minutes. It's faster and cheaper than takeout, and every meal is chef made and dietitian approved. So, they're always big healthy and big delicious to satisfy even most abominable appetites. Plus, Factor give Isu so many choices with over 30 meals to pick from each week, and option like veggie, keto, or even protein plus. So, no matter your food goals, you're never left out in the cold. Get it? With all the time Isu save on hunting and cleaning, me free to pursue other New Year goals, like going to the gym. Isu the Abominable? Want 6-pack abdominals, huh?
Head to factor75.com/command60 and use code command60 to get 60% off your first box. That's code command60 at factor75.com/command60 to get 60% off your first box.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.
I love playing against Jimmy. It's easy mode.
I know, you get him the tiniest bit salty, and his whole game falls apart.
I'm ready to play!
What happened?
Something's changed. He's
My best self, thanks to therapy. I used to let little things get under my skin on and off the battlefield, but working with a therapist has helped me feel empowered and ready to take on whatever life throws at me. They guided me towards healthy coping skills and becoming a more patient person. And if you're thinking about therapy, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, affordable, and entirely online. Just fill out a quick questionnaire to be matched with a therapist, then you can switch at any time. Thanks to therapy, now when I get salty, it's just for the lulz.
Ha! Craterhoof. I win.
And I'm emotionally healthy enough to accept that. Congratulations, me! If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/commandzone today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/commandzone. Whoa, easy there, buddy. Hey guys, it's me, Tatsunari Toad Rider. Now, I love bouncing around on my toad friend Kami, but I'll say this, the ride is far from smooth. That's why, when I want some bops while we hops, I use my RAYCON wireless earbuds. Whether I'm listening to frog and roll music or a riveting historical podcast, RAYCONs deliver top-tier audio quality at just half the price of other premium brands. And no matter how choppy the hoppin' gets, my RAYCONs never fall out thanks to their optimized gel tips for that perfect in-ear fit. Plus, with their super sleek design, the everyday earbuds look, feel, and sound better than ever. They truly are a croak of genius. And don't worry, with RAYCON's 8 hours of playtime and 32-hour battery life, my froggy friend can frolic to their heart's content, and I'll be listening all the while. Turns out RAYCONs really are the total package. All right, we'll see ourselves out. Hi-ho, Kami!
Right now, Command Zone listeners can get 15% off their Raycon order at buyraycon.com/command. That's buyraycon.com/command to save 15% on Raycons. Again, buyraycon.com/command.
Welcome back, everyone, to the multicolored one. All will be one. One is the number. One is the loneliest number.
And also the most complete.
I need somebody. It is the most complete. Let's continue on. We have 4 more creatures here. The first up is Kethek, Crucible Goliath.
He's sweet.
Great freaking name. 2 red and a black for a 4/4 Phyrexian beast. That's what I call myself at home when I look in the mirror in the morning.
4/4 Phyrexian beast.
I'm a Phyrexian, yeah. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary creature card with lesser mana value, put it onto the battlefield, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this comes out, sack a creature on your end step, and blam, you get to basically cascade in a way until you find a lower mana value creature. So that's 3 or less, non-legendary, and it instantly enters the battlefield.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It doesn't need to be 3 or less. It needs to be lower than whatever creature you sacrificed.
That you sacrificed.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Pretty cool.
It is cool. And Rakdos is great at this kind of stuff. So the first question, I think, when you look at a card like this is, what are we sacrificing?
Yeah.
Because you want it to be a real card, because it has to have a CMC, or it could be a copy, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, that's right. If it's a token, there's no mana value attached to it, so you'll get nothing.
Yeah. So we've got some things. But these are some like real cards that have great sacrifice value. One I really liked was Rekindling Phoenix.
Ooh, Phoenix.
I haven't seen this in a while, but it was great in Standard for a little bit.
This thing was demonic in Standard, yeah.
2 red for a 4/3 creature Phoenix with flying. When it dies, create a 0/1 red elemental creature token with, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature and return target card named Rekindling Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste until end of turn.
Every turn you can sacrifice this thing.
And get something
hard
less
to remove.
than 3. Yeah. I mean, they could remove your token, but you're like, you spent a removal spell on a token, and I still have a Rekindling Phoenix in my graveyard.
Yeah. Love this, because again, you just comes your turn, you can swing for 4, sack it, find something 3 mana value or less.
Yep.
Wave of Rats, it's like 4 mana, 4/2. When it dies, if it's dealt combat damage to a player this turn, you return to the battlefield under its owner's control. It's got Trample as a 4/2.
Yeah.
So even if they block it, you're going to have it.
It also has Blitz.
Oh, that's right.
4 and a black, so you can give it haste. And Blitz says, so if you blitz it in, it's a 4/2 trample with haste. You attack your opponents with it. If it hits them,
it's going to come back.
It just comes back.
And then you also draw a card because it's going to die.
Yeah, because it dies from so it brings itself back, and you draw cards because of the Blitz trigger, and you get a creature off of Kethek. Seems cool.
Yeah, that's really great. I like this next category. It's high mana value, but reduced cost. So something that's got a high mana value, but is going to be able to be cast for less. Writhing Necromass costs 1 less for each creature card in your graveyard. So it's 6 and a black for a 5/5 Death Touch. And Molten Monstrosity is cost X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. This is a 7 and a red for a 5/5.
Yeah.
So this could be 3 mana. 2 mana.
Kethek is a 4/4 naturally. So if you have Kethek in play, the Molten Monstrosity only costs 4.
Yeah.
And then you can sacrifice it, and you go through your deck and find something that's 8
or less. Ooh, spicy.
Seems pretty cool. The next one does something similar. It's Marsh Mist Titan. It's 6 and a black, and it costs X less to cast, where X is your devotion to black.
Oh, and that's good in the 2-color deck. You're probably going to have a lot of black pips out there.
Yeah.
Again, same thing with Obsidian Charmaw, 5 mana, but costs 1 less to cast for each land that your opponents control that could produce red. Or sorry, not red, colorless. So it could just be red.
Yeah, Pain lands do this. Just a ton of utility lands just add colorless. So.
It also just blows up a non-basic when it enters the battlefield, too.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Great. You pay red for a 4/4, blow up a land, sacrifice it, get as high as a 4-drop in play.
Yeah. It's kind of cool.
So anything with like ETBs and dies, I think are going to be really strong, particularly non-legendary cards. Like Markov Enforcer is one I found recently, and I'm really high on right now. It is a 4 red for a vampire soldier 6/6. When it or another vampire enters the battlefield under your control, Markov Enforcer fights up to one target creature an opponent controls.
Okay.
And then whenever a creature dealt damage by Markov Enforcer this turn dies, create a blood token.
Blood tokens are surprisingly good. I thought they sucked when I first saw them, and now I'm like, these are better than
gives your whole
clues.
hand cycling. It's so strong.
It's so good.
It comes into the battlefield. It kills something, then you sacrifice it, and you can get something for 5 or less.
Mezio Smugger is a card you can blitz in for 2 in a red, but it actually has 4 in a red as its cost. And when it attacks, you exile the top card of each player's library, and you can play those cards this turn and spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. That's pretty cool too.
Yeah, 2 in a red to blitz in. You draw 4 cards, and then you sack it and go get a creature from your deck.
And you draw a card from the blitz. Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool things that you can sacrifice in this deck and still get value out of them.
What if you're stuck with like a really high mana value hand and you don't have the ways to reduce the mana?
You can sneak them in.
Oh,
a little sneak attack, perhaps.
Got him.
This gets around like the downside of sneak attack, which is you have to sacrifice the creature at end of turn.
Oh, that's right. You can sack the trigger so that you sacrifice it first with your commander's ability.
Yeah, and then you get something else, and it goes to the graveyard.
Yeah, very good. Death Render is also something that when the equipped creature dies, you put the creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, and you attach Death Render to it. So you just keep the train going for the next turn too.
Yeah.
Okay. Lots of cool things here.
Yeah, and then like the copies that we were talking about before, there's lots of ways to make copies of creatures when they die or when they enter. A great one in this is Mimic Vat, particularly if you can get a high CMC creature imprinted on it. It has an ability that says 3, tap, create a token that's a copy of a card exiled with Mimic Vat. It gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step.
But you're going to sack it instead.
So it's a token, but it is a copy of a card. So it does have the mana value of the card that's imprinted on it.
I really like Flame Shadow Conjuring. This an old card. You basically pay a red when the creature enters to make a copy of it. And then Nightmare Shepherd is great because whenever another non-token dies, instead you exile it and you create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1. So you can still sacrifice it to the ability, and then the Nightmare Shepherd says, cool, now you're going to get a 1/1. That's the same card. Yeah. Which is pretty cool.
The next one is pretty sweet if you can get it into play. It's a Skitter Beam Battalion. It is a 9 CMC creature, but it also has Prototype for 3 red, so for 5. And when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, create 2 tokens that are copies of it.
Oh.
If you cast it for its Prototype cost, you still have 3 5-drops so you can sacrifice to get 4 drops into play.
Okay. Now we're talking about red-black sacrifice. One of my favorite things to do in these decks is to steal other people's creatures and then sacrifice them, because maybe your opponent has a 9-drop that you want.
Yeah.
So you
definitely don't want them to have it.
Yeah, you want to have it and you want to sacrifice it. So it's like removal and you get value out of it. So Captivating Crew, you can pay 3 in a red to basically steal something, active treason something. Coercive Recruiter does a similar thing as well.
ETB, whenever it or a pirate enters the battlefield, you can gain control of...
Yeah, so your Captivating Crew is working perfectly.
Exactly. The pirates all working together.
Yeah, and then there's a card called Furlbolg Flutist.
I love it.
4 red, Enthralling Performance. When it enters the battlefield, you gain control of target creature you don't control, and it gains haste and Myriad till end of turn. So you get even more attack triggers. Pretty cool.
So you grab it, steal it, attack with it, sack it. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that.
This is a great underplayed commander card. It's Angrath, the Flame Chained. It ticks up for have each opponent discard a card and lose 2 life, but it's -3, gains control of target creature until end of turn, untaps it gains haste until end of turn, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step if it has a CMC less or 3 or less.
Oh, okay.
So this one just steals something, and then if it's cheap, you sacrifice it. If it's high,
it goes back
to them, or you sacrifice it to Kethek.
To your commander. Yeah. Okay, we got lots of things hitting the graveyard. Let's bring them back. Why not? Phyrexian Delver allows you to bring a creature card back to the battlefield, and you basically you reanimate it, so you lose life equal to its mana value. Puppeteer Click comes in, and Blamo puts a card, and it also has Persist on it. So this will die, get the trigger from your commander, and then come back, get another thing. Yikes.
It seems pretty great in this deck. One I really like is Body Launderer. 2 black for an Ogre Rogue with Death Touch. It says whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Body Launder connives. So you draw a card, discard a card. If it's a non-land, you put a counter on him. And then When Body Launderer dies, return another target non-rogue creature card with equal or lesser power from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Right. So it could be a 3 mana value thing because you're conniving, making it a 4/4 or whatever. Or it could be 4 or less too because it's equal or less, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So just more recursion, lots of interesting ways
Great
to do
ways
it in
to
red, black.
loop it. Yeah, if you sack the conniving guy, you bring back another one. It brings back the conniving guys. So there's a lot of ways to get creatures out of your deck.
High risk, high reward card is Lifeline, which says whenever a creature is put into the graveyard and another creature is in play, that comes back to the battlefield at the end of turn, but it applies to everyone at the table.
Oh, so you best make sure you're taking advantage of it because everybody else will be.
Totally. Dredge of the Mire is cool because each opponent chooses a creature in the graveyard and you get those creatures.
Yeah, and like the thing you're worried about with Dredge of the Mire is getting a bad card, but in this one, you're just going to sack it anyway.
Yeah,
so it's free value.
Yeah. Living Death does a similar thing. Yeah. Now, I was wondering, 0 mana cost, what happens if you sacrifice a creature with 1 mana value? What can you get? Unfortunately, this card says you can't get a legendary creature. So your Rogok, Son of Roga, and your Azmarana, Markadice, and the Kolikaras cannot come onto the battlefield.
Not
but
quite.
you could get a Kobold's Keep, a Memnite, an Ornithopter,
A little Phyrexian Walker for you.
Shield Sphere, a 0/6. Wow.
I think you definitely want a wide range of mana values in this deck because you want to make sure that you're hitting something cool. Something I was thinking about right now is what if you built this deck with a ton of legendary creatures and like one non-legendary
that
creature
you always want to hit.
Yeah, that you're trying to hit this. So you make it legendary tribal, and then you're like, okay, every time I want to make sure I hit, I don't know, Puppeteer Click.
Right.
And I've really built the deck around Puppeteer Click.
That's kind of cool.
Like that.
I like that a lot.
Gives you kind of a neat thing to build.
Yeah, that's how a lot of the like the Cascade to win on the spot decks work in like Modern and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the Phyrexian Elephant Wizard in the room. It's, how do you say this? Malcator?
Malcator works for me. I never know.
Malcator, Purity Overseer. It's 1 white and a blue for a 1/1. Hold up. When Malcator enters the battlefield, you create a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token.
He's a splicer.
Splicer. At the beginning of your end step, if 3 or more artifacts enter the battlefield under your control this turn, you create again a 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token. Okay.
So when he enters the battlefield, we make a golem, and if you can get 3 artifacts to enter the battlefield on your turn, you can make another golem.
At your end step. Okay. So this is a splicer. We've seen this Blade Splicer, Master Splicer, Sensor, Wing. They basically come in, make a golem, and then all of these are lords. So they give the golems first strike or +1/+1 or flying. So those seem like auto includes in the deck because you want to give your, all your 3/3s flying or whatever.
That's what your commander wants. And there's also some cool cards that they've made with golems generally.
Oh, that's right.
Phyrexian Triniform is awesome, and it's a golem itself, and it splits up into 3 more golems.
That
it's
would
a great way to
trigger
trigger your commander.
Wow, make
Triplicate-
4 golems instead of 3.
Triplicate Titan does the same thing. It'll split into 3 different golems. And then Precursor Golem is an incredibly cool card. It is a 5-mana artifact creature golem that says when it enters the battlefield, put 2 3/3 golem artifact creature tokens onto the battlefield. Then, whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single golem, that player copies that spell for each other golem that spell could target. Each copy targets a different one of those golems.
So this is high risk, high reward. This is kind of like, I'm going to pump all my golems up by giving them a spell or whatever. Or it's one opponent casts 1 swords and deletes 17 golems off your board.
My whole board. It's really a cool card. I think in a golem tribal deck, it's probably too risky.
You wait to win, right? You play that card and then you do the Zada Hedron Grinder type thing to give them all something, right?
Exactly.
Or you cast like Leap and then you draw, or not Leap, the one, like any of those cards that draw a card, as well as give it like evasion.
Flying, draw.
Yeah.
Masterful Replication also probably goes in this deck. It is a 6-mana instant that either lets you create 2 golem artifact tokens or choose target artifact you control. Each other artifact you control becomes the copy of that artifact. So you could turn all your signets, all your treasure tokens into golems.
There's also, of course, ways to blink your golems and your splicers. So you got Lazel's Acrobatics. This is actually a really powerful card, I think. 3 and a white. You can exile all non-token creatures you control, then roll a d20. And you got 1 to 9, you return those cards on the battlefield. And if you get 10 through 20, you return them and then you exile them again.
So they blink twice.
Blink twice.
Sort of.
So you have a 50% chance to double blink on a 4-mana instant. You play this right before you go back to your turn with your Blade Splicers, and your wing splicers out, and that should give you a pretty big smackaroonie attack after that.
This one's great. It's Disorder in the Court. It's X white blue for an instant. Exile X target creatures, then investigate X times. Return the exiled cards to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step.
Ooh.
So this is a great way to blink all your splicers, make some clues, and trigger Malcator to get another golem at the end.
And it's an instant, so you don't have to as well. You could hold it up as protection.
Yeah, for sure.
Semester's End is really similar in the way that you just 3 in the white, you exile any number of creatures or planeswalkers you control, so you don't have to do all of them. And then they come back. And you also have cards like Brought Back. This is just classic mono white.
If a permanent goes to the graveyard, boop, bring it back right back.
Yeah, for white instant, pretty good. A way to build back from a board wipe. I mean, imagine building back from a board wipe by playing 2 of the splicers back, and then you get 2 3/3s from those that now have flying and +1/+1.
I wanted to mention this is a blink deck, so we usually will include Conjurer's Closet or Teleportation Circle or that kind of thing. It is a little weird in this deck. They probably go in the deck if you're leaning into the blink thing, but it is a little weird with Malcator because it's an end step trigger. So you can't like blink a splicer to make a golem to help get to 3 because Malcator checks at the beginning of the end step. So if you haven't made 3 so far, Malcator isn't looking.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
But, it's still very powerful. It just doesn't really help you trigger your commander.
Yeah, but let's think about ways to trigger your commander. So there are ways to get 3 artifacts onto the battlefield. Mirror Battlesphere puts 4 of them down. Genesis Chamber, every time a non-token enters, you're going to make that 1/1, but it's for everyone. But you're going to get more tokens. Sharding Sphinx as well.
That'll make a Thopter for each artifact creature you control that dealt damage this turn. So if you deal damage with 3 golems, you make 3 Thopters.
3 Thopters, and then
trigger Malcator, make another golem.
Just 1 though, kind of sad.
Yeah.
Thopter Assembly takes a while to get there, but you get to have 6, I think. 5. 1/1 Thopter artifact creature tokens if it survives the turn cycle. I used to play this card a lot back in the early days.
I remember when this card was great. It's been a while since I've seen it. This one I think is very underrated. I could see this deck being more of like a tchotchke deck that we've talked about in the past, where you're making clues and treasures and all sorts of little artifacts all the time to make sure you're getting golems every turn. And Ethereal Investigator is very good in a deck like that. It's 3 and a blue for a spirit. When it enters the battlefield, investigate X times, where X is the number of opponents you have.
Okay, so that's 3.
That's 3. Yeah. Bam. And then whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a flying spirit token.
Sure.
So it's just an easy way to get to 3, get your commander triggered, and you can blink it.
Now, if you're investigating, you're making clues or treasures, Academy Manufactor just seems like the obvious choice here, because anytime you make 1 of those, you're going to make 3 artifacts instead.
The magic number.
Yeah, and then you're really doing the tchotchkes. You're playing with your little trinkets. You got a lot of clues, foods, and treasures out.
Yeah.
You can double your tokens up. White has Anointed Procession. Mondrak Glory Dominus is a new card that if 1 or more tokens will be created under your control, twice that many are created instead. What?
And it's Phyrexian.
It's Anointed Procession again. It also has some other stuff on it, but we're not going to talk about that. You can give it indestructible. It's kind of cool. The copy thing still works as well for your commander if you have your Spark double out, or if you just want to copy your splicers.
Yeah.
Phyrexian Metamorph is an artifact creature that also can copy, so that counts as an artifact for the turn.
And then you can always get all of your artifacts back from the graveyard. That'll certainly trigger your commander. Dance of the Manse is a great way to do this, or Brilliant Restoration. You're only in 2 colors. You could probably get that.
You can play
you could probably get white. You could do it.
Yeah. But my question at the end of it is this even worth it, Rachel, to try and get 1 golem by getting 3 artifacts out, or are you just going for a cool golem deck?
I wonder if you focus less on trying to trigger your commander and more on just blinking it.
Yeah, because you can't use the golem immediately. It's going to be not your turn. You're going to your end step. You make them 1/3/3. You're probably doing more impactful things than that, right?
I think it's sort of a nice to have thing. Like if you can make just 3 artifacts enter, great. But I wouldn't spend all of your energy making sure you get 3 artifacts every turn to get that 3/3, because that payoff isn't quite there unless you have like all of your splicers, which doesn't seem very likely.
Yeah, and at that point, you're probably just winning because the splicers made you a golem entering by themselves. You didn't need to qualify this crazy thing. You could also maybe play some extra turn spells if you want to go crazy. But at the same time,
and you can make a golem on every end step, Jimmy.
Nope. Okay, let's move onwards to, we have 2 cards left. This one's pretty spicy as well, in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of questionable, actually. You know what? I'm taking it back.
It is bizarre. Let's read it. It's Rhea Ivor. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys.
Rhea Ivor.
Bane of Bladehold. 2 white-black for a 3/4 Phyrexian knight with Battle Cry. So whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Remember, it's other creatures. It doesn't buff itself.
Yeah.
And then it says at the beginning of combat on your turn, the next time target creature would deal combat damage to one or more players this combat, prevent that damage. If damage is prevented this way, create that many 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block.
Okay, so you go to combat, I swing at you with a 4/4, and instead of dealing that damage, I say, no, that damage prevented. I'm going to make 4 1/1 mites. They have Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. Toxic, just so everyone knows, it's different than Infect. It's Toxic means when it deals combat damage, you add however many poison counters equal to the Toxic number. So you just add 1 per. It's not like if you buff it and it's a 3/3, you add 3. No, you still add 1.
It's also different from Poisonous as it's not a triggered ability. It's like Lifelink. As soon as damage happens, it happens. So you can't like respond to the Toxic trigger.
Yeah, so this is weird. Let's just first start off by the fact that this says, at the beginning of combat, the next time target creature will deal combat damage to 1 or more players this combat. Have we ever seen a single creature able to do combat damage to multiple players?
In one combat? I don't think so. And it's very strange templating.
Yeah, because combat damage specifically is the creature attacking you needs to deal the damage. It's not like this deals damage equal, like when this deals combat damage, deal that damage to every other player. That's not combat damage.
Like, and Myriad doesn't count because it's not the card that deals damage.
Right.
It's 2 separate tokens.
So maybe we are future-proofing here, and there in the future may be creatures that can deal combat damage to multiple players or effects that allow that. We don't know.
We've seen that kind of thing before, where they will like write a card in sort of a strange way to anticipate future mechanics, but this one is very weird. So it may just be like a weird edit that left some strange language in the card. But either way, keep an eye out for creatures that can deal combat damage to multiple players.
Yeah,
that's wild.
But the main thing about this card is that why does it only give you the mites after you deal combat damage, and then you have to wait a whole turns? I mean, I know why, so it doesn't just make everyone hate you, but it seems so worthless now because they know what's coming. You just made 5 1/1s with Toxic. They're gonna kill you. Kadeen.
The pen is mightier than the sword.
I think this Phyrexian Knight is knightier than the mite. So there's a lot of. But let's talk about these mites. It's weird. It's a weird payoff though because it makes you wait the whole.
It's strange. Yeah.
Turn.
What kind of creatures want to attack but don't care about dealing combat damage?
Yeah, that's weird.
That's sort of where we are. So I looked at some creatures that are value pieces that have evasion that are naturally you could attack with easily, that you're not really worried about it. So like a Welcoming Vampire is probably good. It'll draw cards when the mites are made, and you're not really worried about making 2 damage, but then you only make 2 mites.
Yeah.
Remorseful Cleric is similar. It's 2 damage in the air.
Smuggler's Copter is cool because you just want the attack trigger to draw a discard. You don't care as much about the damage you can do.
Right. And then I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, so how do you make as many mites as possible?
You got to have a big hit, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a single target creature that you're preventing the damage from.
Right. And I think it's kind of fun to put cards in this deck that scale with a number of creatures, and then it matters how many mites you have, even if you're not dealing damage with all the mites. So I put in stuff like Adeline, Resplendent Cathar. Its power is equal to the number of creatures you control, and when you attack, you make humans attacking each opponent.
Yeah.
So you get an attack trigger, you get a little bit of value, plus Adeline's bigger once you've on the next turn because you've made all those mites.
Yeah.
So you get kind of an
on
exponential
the ground
effect. Yeah.
So it's still harder to hit.
Let's get her in the sky.
Silverwing Squadron, 5 and a white for a star flying vigilance, power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control, and when it attacks, you create a number of 2/2 white knight creature tokens with vigilance equal to the number of opponents you have. So that's a big board grower, and this is probably going to smack people for 4 or 5, get you those 5 mites, and then you're in business.
The best version I found of this is going to lead into our next category of creatures, but this one's great. It's Bronze Guardian.
Ooh.
For 4 and a white, this is an artifact creature golem with double strike. It has ward 2, and it says other artifacts you control have ward 2. Remember, the mites are artifacts.
Okay.
Bronze Guardian's power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. So with Bronze Guardian and Rhea, you can target Ivor, Rhea can target Bronze Guardian. It'll attack, it'll deal damage, and the first strike will be prevented.
Yep.
And you'll make that many mites. And then the second strike
still hits
and is bigger because of all the mites you made.
Oh, yeah. So you could swing, let's say, for 5/5. You smack him or reduce that damage, you get 5 more artifacts. Now it's a 10/5.
Bonk.
Hit him again.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I actually like that a lot. That makes a lot more sense in terms of what you're trying to do. The double strike, because it says the first time combat damage, you prevent it. Yeah.
So this next one is really great in the deck as well for a couple of reasons.
Shadrick Silverquill, one of my commanders I played, 3 white and a black, it's a 2/5 flying double strike. And it says at beginning of combat on your turn, you can choose 2, and each mode has to target a different player. So you can either choose to give someone a 2/1 white and black inkling creature token with flying, or yourself, or give someone else a draw card, lose a life, or yourself, or give someone else or yourself, target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. Ooh.
Yeah.
Mites.
So it makes mites and it buffs up all your mites.
Okay. Yeah, it's great because it'll hit. Yeah, and then let's say you already have some mites, you can put all those counters on it too as well before the combat. That's pretty good.
Something else I liked was we like double strike so much, maybe we should get over all these mites double strike as well.
Yeah, double toxic.
Goring Ceratops for 5 white. This is a dinosaur with double strike. And when it attacks other creatures you control, gain double strike until end of turn. So yeah, your mites have toxic 1. And if they deal damage twice, they get 2 poison counters.
Yep. So that is a win condition, but what if you just need to make your mites a little bit better? You can also just play Divine Visitation in a token deck like this.
Just make them angels.
Yeah, make them angels instead. Huge. You're going to kill someone, there are probably many cases where you're going to kill them faster with 5/4/4s than 5/1/1s with Toxic 1.
Yeah,
so.
It's going to be way easier to hit in the sky with an angel than with these little mites.
You also have Cathar's Crusade if you just want to make the mites really big, and then you really have threatening, toxic, kill them. Actually, no, they still do the same amount of damage. Yeah. You only give Toxic 1.
But they also buff up the creatures that are attacking. So if you're using this double strike thing, you make all these mites, you buff them up, and then your second strike is bigger.
Yeah, that's cool.
Corpse Knight is whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. So now all the mites immediately drain your opponents as soon as they enter the battlefield.
Yeah, it might be better to just think about the mites as just ways to trigger other things as opposed to I'm going to win with Toxic each time, because I think you're not going to find yourself having a great time. Because you're, again, laying it out there for everyone to kill you.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, they're all created in this big explosive turn, and it gives your opponents 3 whole turns to figure out what to do with you.
Yeah, and there are ways to give your creatures evasion as well. Also, just if you're attacking and want to reduce a big strike into, turn your Adeline into more mites. Chroma's Will does that. Archangel of Tithes makes it really hard to block as well.
If you attack with 6 mites, they can't block 6 mites.
Nope.
You attack with 12 mites, you got to pay a lot to block all of those.
Yeah, small but mighty, as you wrote here.
Yeah.
Kaya Geist Hunter also does a similar thing.
And Kaya's Geist Hunter makes twice as many many tokens, and it gives all your tokens Death Touch.
Yeah, so you -2 Kaya, and then you hit with something, you make twice as many, and then next time you can give them all Death Touch, and then you get to play the +1/+1 counter on 1 token.
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. Rumor Gatherer, this is white card draw. 1 white, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under control, you can scry 1, but if this is the second time that the ability has happened, then you get to draw a card instead.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Seems good. Lochiel is also good. It has an ability that says prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking artifact creatures you control, your mites. And then whenever 1 or more artifact creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once per turn.
Okay, so now I was like, you know what? Screw it. I do want to attack with my mites. How can white and black attack twice by taking an extra turn? There's one really good card and a bunch of really bad cards here. The first really good card is Gonti's Aether Heart. 6 mana legendary artifact. When Gonti's Aether Heart or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you get 2 energy. Mites are artifacts, and then you pay, I think, 8 energy. You can exile Gonti's Aether Heart and take an extra turn after this one. Booyah.
Pretty good. That's an extra combat. So now you have all these mites, and they can attack.
Yay.
Actually, they have summoning sickness.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's a new turn. Never mind.
Yeah, it's a new turn, exactly. Magistrate Scepter is a card we talked about earlier, but this takes forever. Maybe you can proliferate because you're playing Infect. Temporal Extortion is black for a sorcery. When you play it, any player may pay half their life total rounded up, and then if they do, you just counter the spell. But you do get to take an extra turn after this one if no one pays for that. Seems unlikely.
They pay for it most of the time. Yeah, somebody's
Yeah.
going to pay for it.
There's also this like weird combo you can do with Time Sifter if you have a Varagoth or Liliana Vess. These are ways to put cards on top of your library. Time Sifter makes at the beginning of each player's upkeep, they reveal the top card of their library, and if whoever has the most highest mana value card, they take an extra turn.
That is such a complicated way to have an extra cop.
But you also have like Vampiric Tutor.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah, but I feel like
it's very sweet.
You have to like flash in Time Sifter before your turn because otherwise everyone's gonna be like, who's got the highest mana value?
You play, and then you definitely are getting killed.
Yeah.
Or this deck could just be a black-white aristocrat token deck, and you could not worry about the toxic at all.
You're creating little creatures to sacrifice.
Creating little creatures. You can get value from having creatures and having artifacts. It's a great place for Skull Clamp and anything that can sacrifice these little mites for value.
Yep. Bankrupt in Blood, Deadly Dispute, our card draw, Eaten Alive, Blood for Bones are removal, Bone Shards, Bone Splinters. You can ramp with Culling the Weak to add 4 black mana for
cool.
1. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And then I love this card, Scapegoat. White mana for an instant, sacrifice a creature, return any number of target creatures you control to owner's hand.
Sacrifice a mite, save your whole board, rebuild next turn.
Thank you, Mite.
And then, of course, this could be a Blood Artist deck, an Ellis Ilkor Sadistic Pilgrim, triggers when they ETB and when they die. And you could get into the some of the Artifactocrats cards like Disciple of the Vault and Marionette Master. Both seem very strong.
Yeah, then you're probably playing Artifact Sack Outlets as well, all that good stuff.
You're probably doing more treasures and clues.
But your mites are creatures, so your mites plus Marionette Master could be game over that turn.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got one more commander, and it is all the colors, and also none of the colors.
And none of the colors, because it's a little mirror. It's Urnet, Remnant of Memnarch. It's a 3-mana 2/2. It's colorless, but it's also a 5-color commander because it says, first line of text, whenever you cast a mirror spell, create a 1/1 colorless mirror artifact creature token. And the second line of text, which is just crazy, at the beginning of combat on your turn, untap each mirror you control. Did they need to do this?
Why?
Who knows?
All of them?
All of them? Each mirror? And the third line of text, sorry, there's more. This is an Urza level card now. It costs white, blue, black, red, green, and you tap Urtet. So this is why a 5-color commander. And you can put 3 +1/+1 counters on each mirror you control, activate only during your turn.
How many +1 counters?
3.
On each one.
Yeah, and then you untap Urtet because at the beginning of combat, you untap each mirror you control. So you're casting Mirror to give you 1/1s. So they get untapped, and then you tap Urtet to add 3 1/1 counters to each of them, and then they all untap.
Make boys, untap boys, buff boys. Yeah. That's insane.
It's on the card. So Smoke and Mirrors, what are the playable mirrors in this deck? Well, there are a lot that tap for mana. Look at that. So you're getting extra mana, basically, but you're refunding your mana because you can untap them, tap
all
them,
of these.
and they get buff. So it's kind of crazy.
There's a ton of these. It's like Palladium Mirror, taps for 2 colorless, Plague Mirror, taps for 1 colorless, and has Infect, Gold Mirror, Silver Mirror, Leaden Mirror, Iron Mirror, Copper Mirror, all
white,
tap
blue, black, red, green
for 1 color of their color. There's a new one called Mirror Convert.
Oh yeah.
Taps for any color, but you have to pay 2 life to do it, and it has Toxic 1.
And not to mention, every time you cast one of these, you get another 1/1.
Just a little boy to put 3 counters on.
Yeah, you got Alloy Mirror. You also have mirrors with activated abilities. So like Mirror Welder, you can tap it to exile an artifact, and then it has all activated abilities of all cards exiled with it.
Yeah, Mirror Welder is a combo piece with a lot of cards. It's a Basalt Monolith and Staff of Domination and that kind of thing. It just means you can untap and go infinite with that.
Mirror Propagator makes copies of itself. Cute. Shimmer Mirror allows you to cast all your artifacts as though they had flash.
We mentioned it before, but Genesis Chamber. Every time you get a mirror, get another mirror.
Get a mirror. Everyone's getting mirrors. Mirrodin Besieged. Is that on purpose? Mirrodin and Mirror? Anyway, when Mirrodin Besieged enters the battlefield, you can choose one, and the Mirrodin is whenever you cast an artifact spell, you create a 1/1 colorless mirror.
You can make so many mirrors.
That's just 2 mirrors for every mirror you cast now. Yikes. Mirror Turbine, you tap it to put a colorless 1/1 mirror artifact token on the battlefield, and you can tap 5 untap mirror to search a card for library for a mirror, put it on the battlefield, and shuffle your library.
So you get mirrors or you tutor for mirrors. Mirror Reservoir adds 2 mana to your mana pool. It's a 3-mana artifact that adds 2 mana to your mana pool, and you can only use it to cast mirror spells or activate abilities of mirrors.
Oh.
And then you pay 3, tap, return target mirror card from your graveyard to your hand. Mirror recursion, or just turn everything into a mirror with a Maskwood Nexus.
Yeah.
It's all mirrors now.
It's all mirrors all day, and you can also pay 3 and tap the Maskwood Nexus to make a 2/2 shapeshifter. That is also a mirror. So, okay, let's get into the broken part of this commander. It says untap all mirror you control. So Josh Lee Kwai, his like disembodied head is like floating right here and going, value, how's it?
Look, we know that Josh loves to draw cards, and he always talks about drawing cards.
Yeah.
But I think his one true love is untapping stuff.
I tap this, I untap that, I tap this and tap this. I'm gonna ping you for this and untap this,
I'll tap
untap
these
that.
two to untap that.
And I get all the mana in the world.
And I'll tap and ping, and they all untap.
And that's why Josh loved a card like Cryptolith right when it first came out. Yep. It's an enchantment, 1 in the green. Creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So every single mirror token you have now taps 4 mana. You can tap that for the activate ability of your commander. Give them all plus and plus counters. They all untap. Use them again. It's like having Sword of Feast and Famine, but for mirrors.
And if you have the money in the bank, you can get the even better version of this, which is Earthcraft.
Yeah, tap an untap creature you control, untap target basic land. Doesn't care about summoning sickness.
Nope, but it is. You will pay the price. It's like over $100 now.
Yeah. Song of Freyalise is kind of similar to Cryptolith, right? 1 in the green for a saga, first 2 chapters. It gives all your creatures tap, add a mana of any color. And then the 3rd chapter, you put a plus and counter on each creature you control, and then they gain Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible. So add that 1/1 counter to the 3 1/1 counters from your commander. You just added... They're all basically 5/5s, Indestructible, Vigilance, Trample.
And then you're going to untap them and put more counters on it. And they're to have Trample now.
Yeah, because technically, right, it's untap at the beginning of combat. You could tap everything to tap your commander, float extra mana, untap it with the trigger on the stack, do it again, add more counters, right? Because it doesn't say at sorcery speed only for his ability.
Yeah, you have to be careful when you're changing phases there, but for sure.
Yeah, you just do it during the combat with the other trigger on the stack. Maybe the best card in the deck is not a mirror, but he loves artifacts. It's Urza, High Lord, Lord High Artificer.
Yeah, all those mirrors that even regardless of summoning sickness, now they tap for blue.
Yeah.
Urza says so.
Yeah, kind of like Earthcraft a little bit.
Yep.
Disgusting. And then you have all that mana. You can just activate Urza a bunch of times too. Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, is another way to give all your tokens a way to add mana. Same with Citadel Hierophants.
Yeah, and he's a good boy.
He is.
From Urza Saga?
Urza Saga. Yeah, one of the most busted sets of all time. And then obviously you want to untap stuff too. So you have more ways to untap your commander and just go nuts. Mirror Galvanizer is a mirror that does it. It also pumps up your mirrors +1/+1.
Unwinding Clock untaps all your artifacts every turn.
Yeah, that's just crazy. If you have Urza out in Unwinding Clock, you have 7 mirror, untap, activate.
No.
Clock of Omens is a maybe in this as well. You tap 2 untapped artifacts, 2 untapped target artifacts, so you can just go into little like tricks. You can just hear the sound.
Yeah. We're talking a lot about haste and making sure to work around haste, but there are a lot of ways that we're giving all of these mirrors that you're making. Haste is very powerful. So let's give them haste. There's some cool ways to do it. Brutaclad. Telcor Engineer. He makes a mirror himself, and then he turns all of your token mirrors into a token of something else.
Something else, yeah. And it gives your creature tokens haste,
importantly.
Alibu, Ancient Witness is a new one from the School of Strixhaven. Other artifact creatures you control have haste, which is just so good. And then whenever one or more artifact creatures you control attack, Alibu deals X damage to any target, including players, and then you scry X, where X is the number of tapped artifacts you control.
I've seen this thing go nuts. I've seen like scry 24.
Yeah, and then murder someone on the spot.
You die, scry 24. All right. Your turn.
What's up? U-turn. They're taking a U-turn to get out of that game because they're so scared.
This one I actually have as a commander of a deck, but I think it's quite good in the 99. It's Dynahair Invoker Adept. It's 1 in Jeskai. It has haste, and it says you may activate abilities of other creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. Woo-wee. So all of those mana abilities you can use for haste, and you can also tap it and to activate an ability. You can also tap it, and it says when you next activate an ability this turn by spending 4 or more mana to activate it, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Yeah.
Your commander has an activated ability.
It costs 5. Urza, also you could double that one up.
Sure can. There's quite a few activations that Dynahair happily activates in addition to giving, or doubles in addition to giving everything haste.
Yeah.
And then there's, 1,000-year elixir.
Yeah, and that untaps creatures too, which is really cool.
Pretty good.
All right, well, now we got more things to talk about, which is like, how can you make this deck better and have a pun happen at the same time?
Yeah. I mean, definitely you're putting in mirror entity.
Mirror entity.
It's both a mirror and a mirror entity.
And it can give all your mirrors XX. Maybe just pay X for it. So that's just a win con right there.
It also turns everything into mirrors, so you'll untap all of your creatures.
You're in a 5-color deck, so maybe you want Myriad the Landscape.
Or perhaps Mirror Ari's Wake.
Oh yeah, these are all playable. Maybe you want more mirrors. You're going to have Mirage Mirror in the deck.
Or Mirror Maid.
Whoa! Or this is my favorite of the whole, and it's the last card we're going to talk about. It's instead of Emery, it's Mirror.
Flicker of the Luck.
Which is also really good in the deck.
It's also really good in the deck.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. This card was made for us, clearly.
It's super sweet. I mean, this deck is wild. It's a mere tribal commander, but it's like so much more than that.
Yeah.
It's an artifact. It's 5-color artifact commander.
Yeah, it's kind of disgusting.
Gross.
I hate it, but it's also I love it. Okay, that's going to wrap up talking about the cards. Let's now go over our favorite and what we think is the most powerful commander from Phyrexia, all will be one, specifically multicolored. Let's start things off with our favorite commander. Mine, I think, is pretty easy. I love Atraxa. I've been looking to build Atraxa, but the original one, I just don't want to do that thing.
It's not your style?
Yeah, proliferating, but I think bakes you into a corner a little bit. So I like this, just like, it's your own toolbox. Build what you want out of it. You still have all the natural parts of you can put in all your ramp. You're in green, so you have access to the colors. Your mana base actually doesn't have to be that expensive, right? And so I like Atraxa a lot. That's my favorite commander. What's yours?
I'm really into Kethek, Crucible Goliath.
Oh, yeah.
This red-black sack deck is really fun. I don't play a lot of sacrifice decks because I don't really love aristocrat decks.
Yeah.
But this lets you sack big creatures to get even more value, and you're moving through your deck and you're seeing all your cards.
Yeah.
It seems really fun to build in Pilot.
I really like your legendary creature idea. So you're just choosing what card you want to pop off.
What do you put in there? What's like the coolest non-legendary creature? I don't even know. I'm gonna make a tweet about it. Keep an eye out.
Yeah. Keep an eye out for the tweet.
Like, what do you tuck in there?
Cool. Okay, so what do we think is the most powerful commander from one? I'm pretty sold on Urnet.
Yeah.
It's 5-color already, and the things we just talked about are not only disgusting, they lead you to take really long turns and do the thing where you're winning harder than everyone else.
Tapping and untapping and tappity. And now it's also, they're, after all that, and I made 45 mana, they're also cute.
Yeah, they're huge, and they're going to kill you now. Yay.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair one, and I was on close to the top of my list as well. I think Atraxa is going to get there for me just because of the card selection. Sure. Getting to 7 mana isn't that hard, and looking at the top 10 cards of your library is absolutely insane. Yeah, if you can double the ETB on this thing, like with new Elishnorn or with Panharmonicon or anything, like you look at the top 10 twice, like you just find exactly the cards you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you want to go really competitive with it, you're putting in all the free counter spells, right? So you just know. And it's so much worse, I feel like, when people know you have a free counter spell in your hand.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, there's a Fierce Guardianship. I'm definitely keeping that one.
Yeah, and everyone goes, okay, well, I guess I can't do anything now.
Cool.
I may as well just do things that don't care about you and advance my own board state, and then you kind of start winning the game.
Yeah, it's I think there's a lot of upside to being able to draw that many cards. Just right in the
upside to drawing that many cards.
What?
Crazy.
A hot take.
Well, listeners, what do you think about that lukewarm take?
Do you think drawing cards is good?
Yeah. Someone's gonna say no.
And what do you think about the new Phyrexia all will be one multicolored commanders that we covered in the show? Which one do you wish that we had covered? Sorry about that.
Yeah, we did miss a couple, so feel free to discuss them in the comments below. And especially if you think that we should have covered them, then I want to see that passionate response and encourage the discussion in the comments.
Are you planning on building any of these commanders? Yeah. And are there any synergies or combos that we missed with the commanders that we talked about today? We'd love to hear your hot tech for these new cards.
Yeah, because if I missed a combo, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to head on over to cardkingdom.com/command and pick up the missing piece of that combo. Or maybe I just want to pick up the cool new basic lands from this set. Something I've just been doing is I love collecting basics, because when I build a new deck, I always need 7 for a 7 this, and I look into my binder and I go, ooh, let's use these sweet Dominaria frame, the stained glass window ones. Cool. Or I could use the ones from this set or the ones from Kamigawa. There's so many selections. One place to get all those cards in a single shipment is cardkingdom.com/command. And again, they have great programs for buyback. They also have great great ways to just paste in a deck list and you choose, I want all these cards to be, near mint quality, or I don't care what quality they are. Show me the options, and you can go through and choose them, and you can actually really get a budget build going that way too. That's how I really like building new decks, especially if I don't know I'm going to keep them forever, but I just want to have the cards. I'm okay if this card's dinged up because it just cost me $5 less than the other version or whatever. So do all that, cardkingdom.com/command, and best part, you're supporting the show while you do it.
Yeah, the other way that you can support the show is go to ultrapro.com/command. If you are building one of these new All Will Be One commanders, go check ultrapro.com/command for your commanders. See if they made a playmat for it or a deck box or sleeves. So you can show up to your commander night at your LGS completely decked out. And they're like, who are you supporting? And you're like, rip open your shirt and it's a playmat of your new commander. And they're like, whoa, this person goes hard.
You take a wall scroll out, you hang it behind the play group. You're like, yeah, just so I'm into it.
Plus, they have very high quality products that make sure that you are keeping your game pieces safe and sound. Get your cards in sleeves, get your cards in nice deck boxes. So if you are traveling or if you are doing, if you're going to your LGS every week, know that your cards are going to come back safe. Again, ultrapro.com/command for all the best Magic.
Rachel has this hollow foil completed Jason.
Yeah, we got to show this.
It's really nice. They have this new technology, and they used it. We previewed it on our holiday episode last year, but it basically makes the entire playmat glimmer.
It's very fun,
and it still has the playmat quality on top of it, so you don't have to worry about cards and stuff like picking up the glimmer. It just looks really nice.
Yeah,
and you can get that from ultrapro.com/command, or maybe at your LGS because they will also carry some UltraPro product.
Yeah, pack your stuff up in your UltraPro stuff. And come see us do game nights live at Philly,
MagicCon
Philly, February 17th through 19th. Come see us live. Where I'm playing, Jimmy's playing, Josh is playing. We're gonna have a bunch of the team out there participating in events, and
it's also
hanging
great
out on the floor, signing stuff.
Yeah, it's great way to meet us, maybe get some games in as well. Last time at MagicCon Vegas, we were so stuffed to the gills, but we got to meet like hundreds of people, sign pictures, take pictures, give away tons of free stuff. So if you're in the area, MagicCon Philly is, it's a very central location on the East Coast. We've never been out east before, so this is your chance to meet us. Check it out from February 17th to the 19th. And I won't say anything about the other MagicCons happening this year because there's one more in Vegas, there's one in Europe, and there's also one I think in Minneapolis. But there is a chance that we also may be at those. But MagicCon Philly is the most guaranteed chance you have to come see us right now, February 17th to the 19th.
We're going to skip the end step this time. We've done plenty of talking, I think. So let's move straight to the cleanup step. Big thanks to our amazing team here at the Command Zone, to Damon Lentz, Arthur Meadowcroft, Lady Danger, Manson Lung, Craig Blanchett, Josh Murphy, Jake Boss, Jordan Pridgeon, Sam Waldo, Gaurav Galati, Jamie Block, Mitch Trafford, Evan Limburger, Gabriel Pozos, Megan Yep, Eric Lem, and Josh Lee Kwai.
How's it? We miss you, Josh. Hope you're having a great time out on vacay. Obviously, you can't record the podcast, so here we are. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. We hope to see you next time, and keep gaming, you gamers. Peace.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @Josh Lee Kwai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.